One thing that Nintendo has been really phoning in for the last nearly decade and a half are the 2D Mario boss battles. Seriously, from the army of Koopalings in New Super Mario Bros. To the repeating Bowser Jr. in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, if you've played a 2D Mario lately, you probably have been underwhelmed at the end of each world. Historically, 2D Mario has not had interesting boss battles. The original Super Mario Bros. Just had you drop Bowser in lava at the end of each world, and Super Mario Bros. 3 and World are guilty of the same Koopaling use that plagues the latter three New Super Mario Bros. Games. Though, these 80s and 90s games should get a little bit of a pass considering that 1. This was as advanced as the bosses could be at the time, and 2. The Koopalings were still new and unique bosses at the time of 3 and World. I think the problem with Nintendo reusing commonly seen characters for boss battles is that there are a ton of great bosses that Nintendo can use. If you look at the spin-offs from the Mario and Luigi and Paper Mario series, you've already got a ton of characters to choose from that can be plopped at the end of each world castle. But maybe Nintendo doesn't want to, or perhaps legally cannot, use the characters made for these spin-offs. Even if you don't look to the spin-offs, there are lots of bosses that Mario definitely has access to that they are actively choosing to not invite to the party. There was a time not too long ago in Mario's history where it seemed Nintendo wanted to improve on boss variety rather than shy away from it. Two games show this the most: Super Mario 64 DS and the original New Super Mario Bros. There are 3 bosses that I want to highlight from these games that show you why Nintendo needs to bring back interesting boss design. There was a time where I thought that Nintendo was setting up Goomboss to be the resident first boss in Mario games. He would fit the role so well. The first enemy is a Goomba, so the first boss is King of the Goombas. Nope, Goomboss only has 3 canon appearances. Hey, at least he's the boss in this video who has appeared in the most games. Stay tuned. The next 2 bosses I'm going to talk about are even more obscure. Goomboss was originally introduced in Paper Mario, a spin-off game. He functioned very much as a giant Goomba would, as an early boss battle. As I mentioned earlier, it's possible that spin-off games are off limits in terms of using characters in mainline Mario, but some characters have exceeded this rule. As such, I will assume that Nintendo is legally allowed to use Goomboss in games like Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and actively chose not to just because they like being boring. Goomboss's next appearance was in the DS remake of Super Mario 64 as an early boss battle. In your first fight against him, the player must play as Yoshi, and you have to eat his Goombas and spit them back at him, or turn them into eggs to throw at him. Every time he's hit, he gets bigger, angrier, and his Goomba minion army grows. So why is he only in the remake, but not the original? Well, the original Super Mario 64 had only one playable character, Mario. But Super Mario 64 DS decided to let us play as 4 different characters: Yoshi, Mario, Luigi, and Wario. Yes, Wario! So disappointing that Nintendo tightened up the restrictions so much since this era. Imagine what we could have had if they decided Wario got to be in mainline Mario. But alas, this is the last time Wario has even gotten close to the main Mario series. So in the game, you start as Yoshi, and then you progressively unlock Mario, then Luigi, and then Wario by defeating the bosses that captured them. Wait, so in this game, Mario, Luigi, and Wario all got beat by different characters? Who did Goomboss defeat? Wait, Mario? This dude canonically defeated and captured Mario. How did Bowser not promote him for that? Goomboss also appears as a boss battle in Mario Kart DS's mission mode. Because yes, Mario Kart had boss battles back during this time, and they never did it again. Imagine if they kept this up. Imagine boss battles in 8 Deluxe. How I dream of a better world. Anyway, Goomboss is actually one of the more underwhelming boss fights in this game. I love the character, but he wasn't used as well in this game as he was in 64 DS, which is a shame because, again, this is one of only 3 appearances of this character across the entire nearly 40-year-old franchise. The boss battle is basically just a race. You know, that thing you do in like almost all of Mario Kart except the boss battles, and boss battles are exciting because they're not races, which is the thing you do for most of the game. It doesn't make any sense. Why did they make one of the boss battles a race? It's dumb. So basically, Goomboss runs and you drive, and you have to get to the end before him. And if you get to the finish line first, he just explodes. He literally just gets so mad about losing, he blows up. This boss battle even gets more points off because you race him on Baby Park, the worst Mario Kart track. The only upside to the Goomboss race is that he puts Goombas in your way, and has a chance to put a mushroom instead of a Goomba. So you have to drive close enough to him to try and catch a mushroom, but you have to be on your toes in order to not hit a Goomba. Now how would I improve this fight? Well, first off, change the course from Baby Park to Mario Circuit. Sure, Mario Circuit on the DS isn't the most interesting track in the world, but it's a regular grassland, which is the main habitat of Goombas. Next, make it so you actually have to hit Goomboss after running into the mushroom, damaging him in the process. If you get to the end of the track without defeating Goomboss, you lose. So that way, you only get so many chances to hit the mushroom right. If you get the first 3 mushrooms perfect, you get yourself a perfect 3-star score. One future Mario game that I think should have included Goomboss is Super Mario Odyssey. I just think it would have been hilarious for Mario to infiltrate his Goomba army with a captured Goomba. The boss battle could revolve around needing to get a larger and larger Goomba tower in order to stomp on your dear leader, a ruler brought down by his people. The original New Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo DS is the only New Super Mario Bros. To not include the Koopalings. As such, it featured interesting boss battles all throughout the game. This is not to say that this game had perfect boss battles. World 1 had the regular Bowser break the bridge stuff. Also, each tower only had Bowser Jr. as the boss, so have fun fighting him about 10 times throughout the game. Of the interesting bosses of New Super Mario Bros. DS, I would like to highlight Lackathunder. This Lakitu possesses the power of Zeus, and rains it down upon you should you cross his path. The fight is actually not that great gameplay-wise. He shoots thunder, sure, but it's just your basic jump on his head 3 times kind of fight. The only reason I want to talk about him is because he's awesome, not because his fight was very fun to play. How would I improve this boss battle? Well, first improvement, instead of just having the lightning go straight down, have there be metal areas on the battlefield that turn electrified should they get struck by the lightning. This way, Mario has to move a little bit in order to not get zapped. Next, have some Lakitu minions join Lackathunder on the battlefield. Then have the Lakitu minions be the ones who come down and attack you, so Mario could snatch their clouds and come up to attack Lackathunder. It's still a simple boss, sure, but these bosses don't need to be too complex, just a nice little challenge with an interesting character. If Lackathunder could have appeared in any future Mario game, I think he definitely deserved a spot in Super Mario Bros. Wonder. One of the biggest flaws in Wonder is the lack of a proper boss battle in all of the airship levels. Mario games have pretty much always put bosses at the end of airship levels, and Wonder kind of broke that tradition. I mean, I guess they kind of do a boss battle. There's this conveyor belt with some obstacles, and you have to press a big red button that just blows up the airship. So lame. The boss of these airship levels should have been Lackathunder. He would have fit perfectly in these dangerous skies. But if you think conveyor belts with big buttons are better, then glad you enjoyed them. A Mario enemy that has been underused as of late is the Bully. These guys appeared in Super Mario 64 and haven't made too many appearances since then. They're still around sometimes, appearing in Super Mario 3D World and even being a placeable enemy in Super Mario Maker 2. The reason that bullies haven't really appeared much since Super Mario 64 is that their enemy gimmick really only works with Super Mario 64, since that's the only 3D Mario game that allows you to punch. See, bullies try to push you off the stage, and when you hit them, they get pushed back as well. The only way to defeat them is to knock them off the stage, usually into lava. In Super Mario 3D World, you have to jump on them in order to knock them off the stage, and that just lacks the same impact as the good old... With the bullies rarely appearing, their bosses pretty much never got another appearance. The bully bosses are the Big Bully and the Frost Bully, but they aren't the subject of this video. Oh no, we're gonna be talking about the Chief himself, Chief Chili. Chief Chili was not in the original Super Mario 64. Much like Goomboss, he only appears in the remake, and he must be defeated in order to unlock Wario. His battle is the most advanced version of the Big Bully battles, which we've seen a lot of by this point in the game. It requires the player to punch him off the stage 3 times. He's not the easiest fight in the world. I'll still die every so often. Chief Chili got to appear in one more Mario game, Mario Kart DS. In fact, Chief Chili is in some ways the final boss of Mario Kart DS. The credits even play after you defeat him. I mean, technically there's a secret world of missions with Wiggler as the final boss, but that's more of a secret final boss. I'd say the actual final boss of Mario Kart DS is Chief Chili, a character who never got another appearance in the series after this. It's actually kind of sad. His boss battle is just a harder version of the first boss battle against the big bully. You have to use mushroom powers to hit him into the water 3 times. I actually failed this boss battle a lot because this dude decides to jump on his last life, which causes you to fly straight into the water behind him. He's actually really hard, and if you want to get a 3-star ranking, you'd better work on your timing. Honestly, if there's one thing going for Chief Chili, it's that both of his appearances are excellent. Sure, he's only appeared twice, but that gives him a 100% approval rating from me. They're exactly what they should be for the culmination of all the bully fights. And Chief Chili is an awesome character. Just look at that ice mustache! If they're not going to bring him back in Mario, do you think they could at least put him in the Wario series? I mean, he is Wario's villain after all. The game I would have liked to see Chief Chili in the most is Super Mario 3D World. Even though this was a 3D Mario game, it also suffered greatly from the same lack of boss variety as the 2D series does. Since bullies appear in this game, I think it's a good idea to have their chief show up as well. There is a boss battle in 3D World with some boss of the bullies, but I don't think he's as awesome as Chief Chili. I would have liked to see him in this game too. In this boss fight, I think it should be impossible to jump on him, and you would have to find some other way to knock him off the stage, such as throwing a shell or another object at him. Perhaps there could be boosts littered throughout the stage that can propel you into his icy body. And those are 3 obscure bosses that I think need to return to Mario pronto. What bosses would you have liked to hear me talk about? Do you think these bosses should reappear? Do you think I complain too much and the bosses in Mario games are fine? Let me know in the comments below. Seeing the HD fully animated version of Mario vs. Donkey Kong's opening cutscenes was a burst of nostalgia and a reminder of how far graphics have come. The cutscene looks fantastic, truly, but I still prefer the pixelated original. Is that just me being a nostalgia addict, or is there truly a magic that was lost in the pursuit of technological advancement? Take a few minutes to hear my analysis, and you tell me which cutscene you think is best. The opening cutscenes of Mario vs. Donkey Kong serve to establish the tone and stakes of the game. What is the tone? Well, it's goofy. What are the stakes? Low stakes. The conflict isn't life-threatening, it's just some big ape stole some valuable objects, and you need to get them back. This makes you feel a little less urgency while going through the level, which is a great feeling considering that you may need to take your time thinking through the solution to the puzzle. Something interesting about these cutscenes is that you'll notice that Mario, the character we play as, only appears in the end of the second cutscene. These cutscenes are focused mostly on Donkey Kong, the villain. This actually makes more sense than you'd think because a player character is someone that we as the player see ourselves as. Usually player characters in video games are intentionally less characterized in order to make it easier for us to project ourselves onto them. This is why in the Mario RPGs, Mario himself doesn't actually speak any dialogue. A villain, on the other hand, is a character that needs ample characterization because the desire to take down the villain is the driving force of gameplay. So in the early 2000s when this game released, Donkey Kong was in a bit of a strange position character-wise. In the original Donkey Kong back in the arcade era, the big ape was the bad guy. In the end, you knock him down and he loses. He's evil. But then Donkey Kong Jr. switched the roles. Mario became the villain in the sequel. And I'm pretty sure that's the only game where Mario actually is a villain. Now, Donkey Kong is a sympathetic character. He's actually the damsel in distress. Sometime after that, Donkey Kong split off into his own series with Donkey Kong Country. Mario and Donkey Kong don't really share many games together, despite the fact that their rivalry is what put Nintendo on the map. Other than these arcade games and spin-offs, they pretty much never shared a spotlight together until Mario vs. Donkey Kong. The only exception to this is the Game Boy Donkey Kong, which seems almost like a throwback to the arcade era. But Game Boy Advance Mario vs. Donkey Kong is the new design of Donkey Kong. We see Mario go up against the same character design that fights King K. Rool and gets back his banana horde. It seems almost like hero versus hero at this point. This version of Donkey Kong just isn't evil anymore. Bowser filled the role of the evil guy. So, to solve this, the opening cutscene shows us Donkey Kong as a sympathetic villain. It humanizes him, if you can even do that for a monkey. So now that we know the goal of the cutscene, let's take a look at how it accomplishes this goal. The cutscene opens on this. Donkey Kong is sitting on his couch, watching TV. Immediately relatable. Also hilarious to see an animal doing a human thing. It's like a dog driving driving a car. Also, I gotta point out, the Shy Guy newscaster doesn't add anything other than a little bit of humor, but it makes me laugh. Look at him doing the news. And then, while DK is flipping through the channels, he sees an ad for the Mini Mario toys. He quickly flips to the next channel, which is playing the classic 80s sitcom Bananas, but he flips back. Now, this is subtle, but it tells us a lot. Imagine how much Donkey Kong must be interested in this product if he is going to switch away from bananas? This guy regularly risks his life to get bananas. So if something is taking his attention away from bananas, it better be important. Donkey Kong is so enthralled by the brilliant advertising of this product that he must have it. He heads down to the store and, uh-oh, sold out. Again, relatable. Once Donkey Kong sees his prized product is sold out, he turns around to see the Mario Toy Company while the classic Donkey Kong music plays in the background. This tells us something is going down. That brings us to the press start screen, but there's one more cutscene that plays after you select new file. This next cutscene details Donkey Kong attacking a bunch of Toad workers and stealing some mini Marios, only to be confronted by Mario, to which he runs away, beginning the narrative. So now let's take a look at the original cutscenes compared to the Switch remakes of the cutscenes. First off, the biggest difference is that the original cutscenes lack any sort of animation. They are almost entirely still images. On the other hand, the Switch cutscenes are fully animated. Now look, I am not going to say that still images are better at telling a story than full motion. If that were the case, every movie would just be a series of pictures. What I will say about this is that because the GBA developers were restricted by the graphics and programming capabilities of the time, they had to do a lot with a little. The story is simple but effective, and it needed to be. They had to make the most of the voice clips and the framing of each individual shot to tell us what is happening and why it's important. There are a few shots that I feel are distinctly better in the original GBA installment. The first is this shot right here where Donkey Kong has hearts in his eyes. In the remake, this is replaced by this little animation of Donkey Kong staring at a mini Mario toy. They elicit a similar emotion, but the humor and simplicity of this hyper-masculine ape with hearts in his eyes over a toy is just so hilarious. The new animation is much more drawn out. It takes up more time. My biggest criticism of the animated version of this moment is that it's just not funny anymore. There's no humor in this. It only tells me that the big ape likes the toy, maybe a little too much. The hard eyes convey this much better. That being said, would the hard eyes actually have worked with these updated graphics? Honestly, no. I think it would have looked kind of weird to have this 3D rendered Donkey Kong with this kind of cartoonish hard eyes. And to be fair to the animated version of the cutscene, Donkey Kong has a much more emotional facial expression here. His whole face is showing us how much he wants this toy. Compare that to the hard eyes, which literally has no other edit than just the hearts. There's one aspect of the cutscene that actually works a lot better on the Switch than in the original, and that is how defined the sold out is over the Mini Mario sign. It's just such smooth animation, and it really sells the moment in a way that GBA just never could. And I'm glad they took this creative liberty to slap that sold out on there when Donkey Kong approached the store. One other moment that I think the GBA did better is this shot right here. This image tells such a story. You have the unwelcome intruder, darkened in the front and illuminated by the light behind. You have the prize he is after placed directly in the bottom left corner of the frame, and you have these scared toads who may become collateral damage in Donkey Kong's quest for what he wants. This is truly DK's Joker moment. It's the image that captures him as the villain of this game. We spent the whole first cutscene looking at what a goofy goober he is, watching shows about bananas and fantasizing about playing with toys, but this right here reminds us that this is a wild animal on the loose, and you need to stop him. Compare this image to the remake's animated version of the moment. It's just Donkey Kong busting down a door. That's about it. They even had the chance to frame the shot like on the GBA, but just didn't take it. And that's probably because with the motion, you really have to do a close-up on DK. This sort of shot actually doesn't work while animated. It's the sort of thing that can only really be conveyed as a still image. So what does this all mean? Am I saying that the Switch cutscenes should have just been HD renders of the images from the GBA? Well, no, that would have been very lazy on the developer side. So why are the GBA cutscenes better? It's because they were a product of their time. See, if you released a game where the cutscenes looked exactly like Mario vs. Donkey Kong on the GBA, play, it would be laughed off as low effort. And that's because with modern technology, it would be. But back in the early 2000s, this was not lazy and it was not low effort. This was pushing the console to the absolute limits. This used the extremely limited capabilities of the Game Boy Advance to tell us a compelling story and set the tone of the gameplay. So yes, I like the GBA cutscenes better, but that in no way means that Nintendo did a bad job adapting them to the Switch. In fact, they did an incredible job. They did exactly what they should have done to make these cutscenes translate to the modern era, and they look great. They really do. I remember my first time playing the original Super Mario Bros. On the Wii Virtual Console. The big difference back then was that game over meant game over. But do 1-ups fit in with the modern era? Was it really necessary to put in extra lives in a modern game like Super Mario Bros. Wonder? Or is this a game mechanic left over from a different era? Join us for a discussion of the history and use of extra lives in the Mario series. When I played the original Super Mario Bros., I was shocked to find out that when you ran out of lives, you had to restart the game. It was my first experience with permadeath in video games. This was unheard of to me. I couldn't believe it, yet at the same time, made so much sense. Really made me think of the finality of death. Anyway, let's do a little history lesson. If you go back a little farther than 1985 to the arcade era, the concept of extra lives became the reason someone had to put in another quarter on the game machine. Your average arcade game lets you play for as long as you can until you lose all your lives. 3 lives became the standard here. Sure, you'll have some game gods who get hours of playtime off a single quarter, but many more people will lose a bit more often and end up spending more of their hard-earned cash. Then Atari came around and home consoles began to compete with arcades. Most Atari games were just ports of arcade games and had the same mechanics. The extra lives just carried over in these ports as players were used to having them in the initial game. Plus, the extra lives gave a good reason to have to pass the controller to your brother. But if you really think about it, when you bought an arcade game for your house, there didn't really need to be extra lives because the customers were just paying one flat sum for their game instead of paying for each play. I guess it can go into high scores and all that, but extra lives just seem like they belong in arcades when you think of them for this purpose. In the NES era, games got much longer than the traditional arcade games, but they were still a shorter experience compared to video games today. Play any NES game with save states and you can finish the whole thing in less than a few hours. There was only so much game you could make on the NES, so in order to make people feel like they got their money's worth, they designed the game so that you would have to replay it over and over again. But once we get to the Nintendo 64 or even some of the higher quality SNES games, it really doesn't seem necessary to game over and make us start the whole game over, so the practice was abandoned and game overs had a smaller penalty, ranging from making you go back to the last save point, which could cause you to have to replay a few levels, or just outright letting you start at the same place with 5 lives. And once a game gets to the point where a penalty for losing all your lives is just, take some more, then the purpose of 1-ups have officially gone out the window. Nowadays, extra lives seem to be on their way out. Games like Mario Odyssey show us that extra lives can be easily removed and not be missed. The penalty for losing in Mario Odyssey is only that you lose 10 coins. That's pretty much nothing. It's a slap on the wrist. But I prefer it that way. I don't need to be punished for dying. I just want to play the game. Not beating the level is punishment enough. Even though they were removed in Odyssey, 1-up mushrooms are still present in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which at this time is the most recent mainline Mario game. Old habits die hard, I guess. Mario Wonder removed a lot of outdated things like the timer and the pointless point system, but they just don't have it in them to get rid of extra lives. Extra lives are very inconsequential in Mario Wonder. First off, if you get game over, you don't have to go back anywhere. You just get 5 more lives. I guess there's this little penalty that you lose some of your flower coins if you get game over, which is similar to Mario Odyssey's penalty. But really, think about how that just doesn't make that much of a difference compared to other game over penalties that kind of make you play on your toes a little bit. In Mario Wonder, there's also the ability to buy 1-up mushrooms. There's even a bulk option, 99 1-up mushrooms for 300 flower coins. Okay, to be fair, you can't do that until you beat the game. So I ask, why have 1-up mushrooms in the game at all? See, it's strange to think of how little 1-ups mean to a game like Mario Wonder, when 1-ups used to be the difference between you starting the entire game over. When a game has permadeath, it makes you play a bit more precisely and adds a lot of stakes to losing. However, it just isn't implemented anymore due to how much it would alienate casual players. I personally don't like permadeath because I don't want to play the same thing over and over again. But I won't deny there is a unique adrenaline rush I felt when I didn't have that choice. Today, permadeath is often a self-imposed restriction rather than one programmed into the games. Nuzlocke and Pokemon come to mind. Even games famous for permadeath like Fire Emblem started adding options to remove it in their modern titles. Casual players just aren't gonna go for it, and advanced players are already accustomed to self-imposing rules, so the incentive to put in permadeath as a game setting is non-existent. But why do I find Nuzlocke and Pokemon exciting while permadeath in Mario is boring? Why is it that I punish myself in Pokemon by making myself start over when I lose, yet when I play Mario games on Switch Online, I use the rewind feature to immediately replay with no penalty? I think it has to do with variety and ways to win. It's more fun to do something over when you play it differently every time. Pokemon is a game that you beat in different ways every time you play it. If you fail a Nuzlocke, you have to start over, same as if you get game over on NES Super Mario. But replaying the Nuzlocke is different. Different Pokemon, different natures, all that stuff. Also, luck is involved. Platformers have no luck. They are entirely skill-based. Mario levels are always the same, so once I pass it, I'm not really looking to do it again. I want to see what the rest of the game has to offer. Now let's take a look at how 1-up mushrooms and coins that grant 1-ups act as collectibles. 1-ups aren't just about losing all your lives, they also act as something that you can look for while you're playing the levels. It gives you more of an objective than just getting to the end. If games have extra lives, then they give the player some way to get more lives, and that gives the player more to do within the game. Usually this comes in the form of getting a lot of a common collectible, like coins, or finding one rare item that grants a whole life, like the 1-up mushroom. Extra lives are a reward you get for exploring the levels and finding secrets. Nowadays, we get other rewards, better rewards, such as collectibles, secret levels, or power-ups. 1-ups seem like a lame collectible compared to those because game overs have no penalty, there's no stakes, the 1-ups don't matter. Whenever I go into a secret room and it's just coins and nothing else, I'm disappointed. In Super Mario Bros., there were 3 ways to get extra lives: finding a 1-up mushroom, getting 100 coins, or hitting a sequence of enemies in a row. 1-ups were scarce in the OG Super Mario. Nowadays, they're everywhere. So not only was there a big penalty for losing, you were also more likely to get that penalty. I think the most lives I ever had at once in the original Super Mario Bros. Was 9. I got it through the hidden one in 1-1 and another hidden one in 1-2. Which got me to 5 lives. Then I warped to 4-1 and got the other hidden one in that level, which makes 6. Around here, I get 100 coins, which gave me 7 lives. In World 8-1 and 8-2, there's even more hidden 1-up mushrooms, and that makes 9. And then, when I got those 9 lives, I lost just about all of them on 8-3 to those Hammer Bros. And then the final castle took away the rest. Except one. I had 1 life, and I got to the end. And I hit that axe and dropped Bowser into that lava, and I gotta say, that was a really unique gaming experience. I mean, as much as I'm ragging on 1-ups and permadeath and saying how bad they are for games, I'm really glad I got to live through that. Like, if Super Mario Bros. Didn't send me back to the beginning, if it didn't have 1-ups, if it had the save states or the rewind function, I wouldn't have gotten to experience that. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. It's a nice memory. So were extra lives ever a good game mechanic? No one likes a punishment. Extra lives always seemed like they were an adversary to you. And at the end of the day, that's what extra lives are. 1-ups are on the developer's side. They're trying to get you to run out of lives so they can charge you another quarter, or they can make the game you paid for seem longer. Fun memory of a high-stakes trek through Bowser's castle aside, there's really no purpose for 1-ups anymore. So I think extra lives should not get an extra life. With rumors of the next Mario Kart fluttering about on the internet, there's a lot of talk about what sort of tracks the next title will include. I think a character in Mario Kart who never got a lot of good representation track-wise is Donkey Kong. Think about it. Even though the Big Ape has appeared in every single Mario Kart, the tracks that represented him have never been anything more than a regular jungle, except for these two snow-themed tracks that don't even reference the Donkey Kong series. Why are DK Pass and DK Summit named after Donkey Kong? They could have easily been Toad's Mountain and it would have made no difference. While tracks like DK Mountain are certainly classics, I think there is a lot more to the Donkey Kong series that has been underused in the crafting of Mario Kart tracks. If you're looking for interesting biomes in the Donkey Kong Country series, look no further than Donkey Kong Country 2. A platformer that to this day still boasts some of the most interesting level themes I have ever seen in a video game. Here are 4 obscure levels that need to be turned into Mario Kart tracks. Let's begin with the Beehive levels. The 4th world of Donkey Kong Country 2 is based around a run-down theme park. What are the bane of theme parks? Bees. With all the left-out soda, dropped churros, and unfinished lollipops littering the park, these little guys are gonna come out in full swing to get themselves a taste. 2 levels in this world focus on beehives. Inside these hives, the Kongs have to avoid the notorious Zinger, all while getting stuck in some sweet, sweet honey. There are also other enemies in here for some reason, like porcupines. Not sure why there are porcupines in a beehive, but hey, they make for a good obstacle. What is so memorable about these levels are how they use their theme to influence gameplay. It feels more cramped, much like a beehive would be, and your mobility is constantly being hindered by the honey patches. These levels are a gem and represent the fullest potential of what an interesting and creative level can be. So how would these beehive levels work as a Mario Kart track? The main obstacle of this course would be the honey, and if you find yourself hitting it, you not only get slowed down, but you also get a honey version of the blooper, which will cover your screen. Then you've got the zingers. Flying enemies are difficult to implement as obstacles in Mario Kart, but many of these zingers actually fly close to the ground, making them as good as a ground obstacle as they would be in the air. They also could alternate spaces on certain jumps, causing you to need to time which part of the ramp you go up on so that you don't fly right into their stingers. One reason it is unlikely this would end up being a Mario Kart course is that there is already a bee-themed Mario location that is worthy of being made into a track, the Honey Hive Galaxy. It's from a more recent and more popular game, and it's associated with a character who was actually playable in Mario Kart, the Honey Queen. The Queen Bee isn't the most popular Mario Kart character and wasn't even selected to return to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But if she does get into the next Mario Kart, a track based around her home galaxy may come with her. The reason I think that the Donkey Kong Beehive is a better choice for a Mario Kart track is that the bees are hostile in these beehives, while the Honey Hive Galaxy is filled with friend bees. Wouldn't you rather have a beehive track where the bees are obstacles instead of just cheering you on in the background? Donkey Kong Country 2 is a pirate-themed game, and as such, there are pirate ship levels. There are 3 types of pirate ship levels in the game: standard ship deck levels, sail levels, and below-deck underwater levels. When you compare this being the first world to how just about every other Mario game starts, you'll see why the Donkey Kong Country series gets a creative edge over the Mario series in terms of its environments. Starting a Mario game? Hope you like grass. Starting Donkey Kong Country 2? Avast ye, mateys! These levels prioritize level design over creating a believable ship. I don't know how this ship is still afloat, considering that they're straight up cut in half at certain points. I find these levels to be almost surreal, like you are going on some sort of massive structure based around the look and feel of a pirate ship. There has been some pirate representation in Mario Kart before, but we have yet to see a full-on pirate ship track, and I think there is no better way to implement pirates into Mario Kart than to use Donkey Kong Country 2. Since there are 3 types of pirate ship levels, the Mario Kart track should be one of those 3-part mega tracks where you begin on the sails and make your way down below deck to the underwater section. The obstacles would consist of a bunch of crocodiles firing cannons at you. And if this kind of track were put into Mario Kart, the developers would no longer be able to ignore King K. Rool, and he would have to be added as a character. With all the different Donkey Kong reps finding their way into Mario Kart, and with K. Rool being a character in Smash, I think this is a real possibility. Next up are the King K. Rool castle levels. Now, I debated actually adding this one to the list. With all the Bowser castle tracks around, do we really want another track based on some villain's spooky dark colored castle? Well, when you actually look at the difference between Bowser and King K. Rool's interior design decisions, you will find that these castles would be nothing alike. Both Bowser and King K. Rool have castles, but what are the main differences between them? Main difference? King K. Rool's castle does not contain any lava. I guess he understood how hard it is to ship lava to a castle. Instead, K. Rool's castle's main dangerous liquid of choice is radioactive waste. Probably still not the best thing to keep in your castle, but certainly different from lava. Another difference is that King K. Rool has these frozen wastelands inside his castle. I guess King K. Rool doesn't want to pay the gas bill around here. So next time you go assuming that just because a video game villain has a castle, it'll be exactly like Bowser's castle, you might want to consult an evil castle architect. If this were implemented into Mario Kart, it would admittedly be similar to a Bowser's castle stage, but with radioactive waste instead of lava. There would be some ice sections as well to reference the ice levels in the castle world. In total, there have been 11 Bowser's Castle Mario Kart tracks. Don't you think another villain deserves to get at least one castle in there? I will never get over how absolutely stunning the concept of the bramble levels in Donkey Kong Country 2 are. There's something just so magical about these levels, so serene yet so dangerous. What is so interesting about these levels is that their main environment is dangerous to the touch. There are a few spots in the levels that have these wooden planks built on the brambles, but that is few and far between. The final two bramble levels utilize Squawks the Parrot for traversal, allowing you to fly through the level and avoid the thorns. But I really have to give a shout out to the first bramble level that utilizes timing these barrel cannons to get yourself through the maze. I found that to be a really creative way to navigate a level where you mostly cannot touch the floor without giving you the gift of flight. The Bramble level has been criminally under-referenced since its inception in Donkey Kong Country 2. The most iconic thing about these levels are its incredible music track. The music even made it into Super Smash Bros., which is quite the achievement considering how many great Donkey Kong songs that could have made it in. Unfortunately, the Brambles didn't make it as a Smash Bros. Stage, and never made it as a Mario Kart track either. While this would be the most interesting and most iconic use of a non-jungle Donkey Kong track in Mario Kart, it is far from the easiest to implement. How does one have a whole race track when the floor is trying to stab us? The obvious answer is to cover most of the track in the planks and task the player with avoiding low-hanging brambles, but I think we can do better than that. Much like how the levels challenge the player with avoiding all this hostile territory, the Mario Kart track should be much of the same, challenging the players to make certain tight jumps so as to not fall off and be impaled. Or perhaps the next Mario Kart will implement planes alongside carts. If there were sky tracks introduced into Mario Kart, then the Bramble levels would be at the top of my list on what sort of track should make it in. With the reintroduction of Diddy Kong and Funky Kong into Mario Kart, I think the series is gearing up to give us more of the big monkey. Donkey Kong is so much more than just a monkey who lives in a jungle and eats bananas. His game series is filled with beautiful environments, most of which have not been represented in any game outside of where they were introduced. Seriously, look at how many tracks in Mario Kart are just generic grasslands or a real-life city. It's a shame that interesting track possibilities like a beehive or a pirate ship have not been implemented yet. I'm sure it's a long shot that Nintendo will give any love to this now obscure installment in the Donkey Kong franchise, but hey, I can hope.
The remake of Mario vs. Donkey Kong implemented a massive change that you may not have noticed. The points are gone. Why is this a big deal? After all, Mario Wonder got rid of points and no one said boo. What if I told you that the score in Mario vs. Donkey Kong gave way to one of the greatest Mario challenges any gamer can face? Unlike other Mario games where the score number follows you the entire game, the score in Mario vs. Donkey Kong is tied to each individual level. Every level is a clean slate, starting you off at 0 points. Also, each level has a default high score that it challenges you to beat. Beat the high score and receive a star for the level.
Well, who cares about a stupid star?
I'm so glad you asked. See, these stars are more than just a pro gamer marker. They unlock the expert levels. And let me tell you, unlocking the expert levels is no small task. If you can actually unlock all of the expert levels in the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong, then I tip my hat to you. The expert levels are still present in the remake. However, since the stars are so much easier to obtain, unlocking the expert levels is easier too. So, how do you get the high score? There are 3 ways to score points in Mario vs. Donkey Kong. 1, defeating enemies. 2, getting all 3 presents. And 3, beating the level as fast as possible for a time bonus. This incentivizes the player to clear all of the enemies and grab all of the collectibles in a level with speed run precision. What turns this from a moderate challenge to an insane challenge is that if you lose a life in the second half of a level, you can kiss bye-bye to the star. Here's why. When you finish the first half of a level, all of the time you had left on that level gets added to the second half of the level. However, if Mario goes Mamma Mia during the second half, that time bonus is erased. Without that time bonus, you will never get enough points to snag the star. One problem with this is that it's pretty tedious to play the first half of a level over and over again, because you keep messing up in the second half. Now let's compare getting stars in the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong to its remake. In the remake, there is no longer a score, but you can still get a star for collecting all 3 presents. This is, to say the least, not as challenging. The presents aren't that hard to get. What made it hard to get the presents and get a star in the original is that you had to do so in such a strict time limit. Let's take a look at a comparison of the same level in both the original and the remake to illustrate just how much the score changes things. This is Mystic Forest 2. It's a relatively simple Mario vs. Donkey Kong level that revolves around avoiding the spear guys to grab the key and get to the door. If you want to get a high score for this level, you're going to have to use hammers to defeat all of the spear guys in your path, while also getting the key as fast as you can. But wait, there's more. Since the points received from mashing a spear guy increases exponentially if you squish them all with the same hammer, there is actually a way to boost your score if you play strategically. Avoid this first hammer here. It's a red herring. Instead, you want to knock out all 4 spear guys using this hammer up here. How do we accomplish this? You have to first press the blue button up here. When you get to the blue button, this spear guy over here is gonna chase you and block you access to the blue ladder. You're going to need to carefully get around him to reach that ladder. Once you get up the ladder, you can defeat spear guys 1 and 2. Now comes the tricky part. Press B to throw the hammer up at just the right spot. Then drop down to grab the hammer when it reaches the bottom of the ladder to get spear guy number 3. Then do another precise drop in order to get spear guy number 4. This will net you a whopping 2,400 points, putting you in range of getting the high score if you play optimally throughout the rest of the level. Compare this to the same level in the remake. Since there are no points, there is no incentive to do this crazy spear guy chain. The problem with removing the points is that it doesn't actually make the game better for anybody. For most people, it will go unnoticed. Most people aren't gonna do this crazy challenge and get a star on every level. And for those people, that's fine. You can still progress and beat the game, star or no star. But for people who really want a challenge, the high score was what tied this game together. Every time I played Mario vs. Donkey Kong, the thought of getting through it as fast as possible affected how I played the game at every turn. It made me want to defeat every enemy. It made me not want to get hit in the second half of the level. It made me figure out the optimal plays and time saves like that crazy hammer chain in Mystic Forest. That's all gone in the remake. And why make it gone? I have a theory. I think Nintendo doesn't want people to feel like they didn't complete the game if they didn't play at near perfect precision. See, in the original, if you don't get a star in the level, you just get this black star-shaped hole telling you you're a failure. So, Nintendo decided to move the goalposts, and move the goalposts they did. Now, if you're just going to comment, it's a game for kids, comment something else. Comment anything. It's good for the algorithm, but don't say it's a game for kids, because this is a game for everyone. And yes, kids and less experienced players should be a part of that, but those players get their casual modes and multiplayer for a simpler experience. I played this game nearly 2 decades ago when it released, and so did a lot of other people. Anyone who was so dedicated to Mario that they picked up this remake because they played the original is bound to be at least a little more skilled at controlling the plumber. So please, Nintendo, stop getting rid of the challenge of these games. Players are only going to get better. Younger and less experienced players can deal with a black outline of a star that says you could have played better. If anything, they should find that encouraging. When I played this game as a kid, I saw those black stars as motivation, something that I wanted to fill in. And you know what? I've never actually done this challenge. So I guess I'm not a real gamer either. Overall, I enjoyed the Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake. It was amazing to revisit this GBA classic with updated graphics, and the fact that it added 2 new worlds was an amazing bonus. But if I'm looking for a real challenge, I'm gonna revisit the original instead. Mario Kart has operated under a principle of equality for decades. The farther you are from first place, the better the items you receive. But what if we change the rules and every item box could only yield the same item? Or what if you only pulled from a handful of pre-selected items? That's exactly what you can do in an oft-overlooked feature from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the custom item screen. I've tested many custom item spreads. Some took away all semblance of strategy. Others required coming up with new strategies I thought I'd never do. I narrowed down 10 possible custom item settings that, once you hear about them, you're gonna have to reach for your Switch to try them out. Let's get started. So I thought that all Super 8 would make for a chaotic mess of flying shells and bloopers. But when I selected Super 8 as the only item, I noticed the game automatically added a mushroom. At first, I thought this was a nerf to this possible crazy game mode. But then, in the match, I noticed that when I got the Crazy 8, it gave me all 8 mushrooms. This is just one of many new things I've learned about this decade-old game by playing with this setting. Unfortunately, the Crazy 8 match I wanted was impossible. However, maybe we can still make it interesting if we turn on Crazy 8 with the star. If you play with only these 2 items turned on, most of the time you will get a single star. It's not a 50-50 chance for 1 star or 8. Even with custom item spreads, the game still puts items it deems better in the hands of players further back on the track. If you're around 7th or lower place, you may find yourself getting 8 stars instead of 1. You would think that the 8 stars would be a huge advantage, and you would be incorrect. With this game setting, you will be functionally invincible the entire race whether you get 8 stars or not. The reason all stars is so low on this list is because everyone is just invincible the entire time. No one gets hit, and the lower placements don't get a chance to make a comeback. However, if you've got some friends who are great drivers, you may have some fun speeding through races with invincibility. This one is about what you expect. You get zapped and zapped over and over again. There actually is one element of balance here. When lightning strikes, the higher your placement is, the longer it will take to grow back to normal size. So it takes longer to grow back if you're in first than it does if you're in 12th. This will lead to a possibility of a comeback should you find yourself falling behind. This custom item spread's biggest downfall is its egregious pacing. Lightning usually strikes once, maybe twice in a regular Mario Kart match, and while it throws off the speed of a race, it does offer a needed shakeup. Getting struck by lightning every 5 seconds? You're just stopping over and over again. It's rough. If you do play this mode, try to challenge yourself to get 10 coins. Since you lose 3 coins every time you're struck and there's no way to avoid getting struck, having more than 0 coins is gonna be rare. The Piranha Plant is a relatively uncommon, rarely talked about Mario Kart item. It provides little boost and moderate disruption of your opponents, but lasts for so long it prevents you from using other, more useful items. Because of this, it's usually not the item you hope for when you hit a roulette block. But what if the only item was the Piranha Plant? With this custom item spread, everyone is gonna keep a good distance from one another. Similar to the problem we had with the star, there is an issue with balance. Since everyone has the same item, there is little opportunity for the lower placements to make a comeback should they fall behind. Your best bet is to target other players, but you'll just get targeted right back. Maybe the Piranha Plant should stick to singing instead of being Mario Kart items. The bullet bill is basically just a cheat code item. For a few seconds, it takes over your controller and follows a set path, knocking out anything in your path. When I first started toying around with custom items, I was hesitant to do the obvious bullet bill only setting because I didn't think it would be very exciting. Spoiler alert, it was awesome. All bullet bills is an amazing Mario Kart mode. In fact, it's ranked even higher than this one. But before I knew that all bullet bills was a lot of fun, I tried a bunch of different combinations of bullet bills. One such combination was bullet bill / banana, but that just led to big leads and big drops. It wasn't that fun at all, and it didn't make the list. Bullet bill / golden mushroom, on the other hand, is a delightful challenge. It's funny that when I played this, I actually found myself disappointed when I got a gold mushroom. A gold mushroom is actually slower than a bullet bill, but it usually lasts longer, so the two items can even each other out a bit. Because of balance, you'll often get the gold shrooms when you're racing better and bullet bills when you're doing worse. The main challenge of this setting is to make sure you get out of the way of the bullet bills as you're speeding away with your golden mushroom. There's gonna be a lot more bullet bills on the track this time, so you better watch out. The blue shell is Mario Kart's most controversial item. In case you don't know, which I don't know why you'd watch nearly half of a Mario Kart video and not know what a blue shell is, but the blue shell is an item that goes straight to first place and explodes. It's the great equalizer of Mario Kart. The funny thing about the blue shell is that it benefits the player in second place the most, but blue shells are often given to players in around 6th place or lower. It's like, well, I'm mad I'm not doing well, at least I can hit someone far away from me. But what if everyone in the race got blue shells all the time? Probably just a chaotic mess. Oh, you'd be correct on that, but there is a genuine strategy to this item spread. When the only item you can get is blue shells, you want to stay out of first place for as long as possible. If you find yourself in first place, you will be hit by up to 5 blue shells. It's kind of beautiful to watch. The most important part of this race is the very end. You've got to get yourself in first at just the right time to not get shelled yourself. Oh yeah, and word of advice, do not use your blue shell when you are in first place yourself. You will hit yourself. Wouldn't it be funny if you used the blue shell in first place, it went and hit the person in last? If all blue shells is too much for you, then you can just play with all the different shells. This is a much more tame Mario Kart match, but also a more strategic one. The green and red shells are both a defensive and offensive item. Hitting someone with a red shell isn't super easy here because they will often have protection. And you may not want to throw your shell lest you leave yourself exposed. And be careful of being in first. There's no super horn coming to save you when that blue shell hits. If you focus on good driving, green shell sniping, and blue shell avoiding, you just might take first place. This is a speedy match. The balance comes from receiving either 1, 3, or gold mushrooms depending on your placement. The winner of this kind of item spread will be the person who best memorized the track and knows the shortcuts. It's cool to go through a track with boosts and not get hit by any other players, but I must say something does feel missing with this item spread. While it's annoying to get hit by shells and lightning, playing without them makes you realize how important they are to the game. This seemingly random combination of items actually presents some wonderful synergy. The bomb is the dud item. You'll get it more in the higher placements and probably won't get too much use from it. The bomb is truly one of the worst Mario Kart items, unless you're a skilled sniper, which I am not. Then you've got the bullet bill, which keeps things spicy because it constantly has players shifting from low placements to high placements. And with its higher prevalence among players, you better avoid the middle of the road lest you get blasted away. Then we've got Boo. Not only does Boo turn you invisible to protect you from the bullet bills, if you're in a higher placement, Boo may even steal you a bullet bill that you couldn't have gotten otherwise. This custom item spread is great if you want a more contained but still chaotic race in Mario Kart. Similar to all shells, you have to be careful with your choice of attacking or defending. However, since green shells are off, you may want to defend more since every shell thrown is honing into your location. I debated possibly adding mushroom to this spread just for one more item. So if you try this out and think it could use a little shroom, let me know. Before we get to number 1, I have some dishonorable mentions, starting with anything with blooper 50% of the time. I tried having blooper as a dud item in some races. I tried some like blue shell / blooper and bullet bill / blooper. Basically, if you don't get the good item, you get a blooper. Don't do this. When half of the players get blooper, you spend the whole race blooped. You might as well just play the game blindfolded at this point. One more mention that I don't know is honorable or dishonorable is all coins. If you use this mode to play with coins only, you can quickly grind to unlock all of the cart pieces. However, beyond that, all coins is not fun on its own. It's basically like playing with no items at all. Mario Kart with only bullet bills isn't just a wacky game setting. It should be a brand new meta. Seriously, there should be bullet bill only Mario Kart tournaments. I thought this would be nothing. I thought it would just play the race for you, but I was so wrong. Bullet bill only matches are fast, yes. The quickest Mario Kart races you could ever have. That's what makes them so special. I understand your skepticism, and you must be asking about balance issues. If you're in first with all bullet bills, you must just stay in first and just last your way through the whole race. Nope. Bullet bills last for a shorter amount of time the higher your placement. If you're in first, your bullet bill will not last as long as if you were in ninth. I never knew this about Mario Kart. Due to this balance, you will constantly be changing positions throughout the race. The strategy comes down to this: how many bullet bills you have, and where you use them. You may not want to blast off as soon as the item touches your hand. You may want to wait until a tricky turn or a point where it hits another player. And for the amount of time you're not a bullet bill, watch out. They're coming, and you better get out of the way. There's just something so beautiful about watching all these bullet bills fly through the track. They're so majestic, yet so dangerous. Of all the custom item spreads I've mentioned today, I recommend you go and play all bullet bills right now. You will have such a good time, I promise. And if you give any of these a try, make sure to come back in the comments and let me know which one you did and how you liked them. Also, let me know if there's a great item spread that I may have missed. Princess Peach Showtime sees the titular princess take on a heroic role in order to save the Sparkle Theater from the evil witch Grape. Or so it seems. What sets the game apart from others is its unique theatrical setting and how it uses that setting to influence gameplay. The game both revolves around saving a theater and uses elements of theaters and theater tropes to design its levels. There's something I noticed in the presentation of this game that hints to me that something is not quite right about this theater, and that its main antagonist, the quote-unquote evil Madame Grape, is hiding something. In order to understand Princess Peach Showtime's big secret, let's first take a look at the game's setting. The Sparkle Theater is the main setting and hub world of Princess Peach Showtime. The entire game takes place within the theater, with all the levels taking place on the different stages. In the game, you go through semi-3D platformer levels designed around the type of play that the level is inspired by. What makes Princess Peach Showtime so special is that it steers so much into its theming that some levels can feel like an entirely different game. For example, the Ninja Peach levels play like a stealth assassination type game, whereas the Detective Peach levels play like a Nancy Drew-esque mystery game. Like I said before, the theatrical setting influences the gameplay, so much so that it sometimes feels like the game is happening on a stage. Some of the animations are even made to look like practical effects. For example, if something is on fire, it's a glowing set piece rather than a literal flame. The developers played around a fine line of immersion, as the game both takes place inside and is themed around a theater. I may have figured out why the game comes off this way, but more on that later. Let's compare this to another game that takes place in a theater, Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. While that game also has settings that look theatrical and even has a few game mechanics based around theater, such as the audience granting you powers and stuff like lights falling on you and dealing damage in battle, those mechanics are nothing more than little fourth wall breaks that reference the stylization of the game. Mario isn't visiting a theater that's putting on Rogueport the Musical, he is literally visiting the actual location within the game's world. Princess Peach Showtime, on the other hand, hand, doesn't act like Peach is literally going to places like a museum or a castle, but rather that she's going to the stage where those productions are being held in order to rid Madame Grape's minions from them so the show can go on. What I'm trying to say is that something is off here. Are the plays in trouble, or are they just that? Plays. Let's go over a few instances of some of these plays acting a little strange. The first time I noticed Princess Peach Showtime's unique approach to setting was in the very first level. When you begin the level, there's a castle in the background. Now, it's obvious that within this theater setting, that is just a tiny cutout of a castle put on top of a set piece, and not the actual castle in the distance. However, none of the NPCs act like that is a set piece. Stella is just like, look, the castle is over there. Don't you think they would drop the act if their whole way of life was at stake? Another instance of this happens later on in this same level, where a slightly larger cutout of the quote-unquote distant castle is lit to show a member of the Sour Bunch threatening the king. Now, the king shows up later on being held hostage in the real castle when you get there. And if the king is there in the real castle, who is the dude in the silhouette? And who is the Sour Bunch member keeping him captive? Did they make the trip all the way from the real castle just to show me that the king was in trouble? Another strange instance of this is in the second Cowgirl Peach level that begins with a train coming through and destroying the town. When this happens, all the Theets are like, oh no, our homes are gone. But wait, you guys live here? I thought this was a set. Aren't you guys just actors? Wouldn't you go home at night? Wouldn't it break actors' union rules to require you guys to sleep on stage? Then we've got this moment where your horse returns to you, and Stella remarks that the horse came back. Oh my goodness, it must have liked you so much. But the horse is not alive. It's on strings. Stella, how do you not know that? What all these instances I mentioned have in common is that they tread a fine line between the theater being in trouble and the show's moving on as planned. What I am trying to figure out is, which is it? With all the strange things going on within the plays, I have come to one big conclusion. The Sparkle Theater is one big lie. These plays are not going wrong. They're going exactly the way they are supposed to. And the Sparkle Theater is just an excellent immersive theater experience. Sure, you could go to a boring regular theater where you sit in chairs like a peasant, or you could be like a true princess and head to the Sparkle Theater where they put you in the show. Seriously, where would the audience even be in this theater? They're huge. Do the chairs move? Or are you the audience? Oh, and Grape? She's just an actress. You've got to have someone play the villain. Why do I think this? For starters, it makes a lot of the stuff I mentioned about immersion make sense within the world of the game. But also, think about it. Most plays have villains. And if Grape and her Sour Bunch never showed up to the Sparkle Theater, who would the villains have been in these shows? It seems like we meet every Theet, and they're all still in costume from when the place got taken over. Not one Theet is dressed like a villain. It's not like there was one guy who was like, yeah, I was supposed to play the role of the bad guy, but then the real villain showed up. Here's the piece of evidence that cinches it. Even when the theater gets taken over, they're still selling merch! Sure, we're all being held hostage, but the shop stays open. How convenient. One issue I have with this theory is that it kind of takes away the stakes of the game. Obviously, if this is all just an immersive theater experience, then Peach was never in any real danger, and then she's not really a hero. That's kind of lame, right? It really ruins the story, except it doesn't at all if you think of who is really behind this. It's none other than Mario. Yes, that's right. Mario used his bricklaying connections and the many coins he made from the widely successful Mario Toy Company to build this theater just so he could trick Peach into becoming capable of saving herself from Bowser. And it worked. That would mean that each game where Princess Peach is playable would take place after Princess Peach Showtime, whereas every game where Peach gets kidnapped takes place before Princess Peach Showtime. Super Mario Bros. 2 can still go anywhere on the timeline, as it all happened in a dream. Whose dream? Mario's! Mario has been dreaming to see Peach go on her own adventure since 1986. It's actually really sweet. Oh yeah, also, I think Grape is Luigi in drag. No, I will not elaborate. Of course, the theory I just said isn't true, and wasn't intended by the developers. I thought about not even making this video because I'm not really a game theory guy. I more so like to talk about how video games present themselves as a media of entertainment and how we as players engage with them. While this video definitely did a little wacky theorizing, I do want to say that what I really have to say about Princess Peach Showtime is that the developers and game writers knocked it out of the park in terms of how they use their setting to immerse players. I myself am a theater person. As someone who has been around theaters for my entire life, I have always wanted to see a video game based around it, and Princess Peach Showtime nailed it. The music, the level design, and the changing styles of gameplay all reflect live theater in a way that is fun and engaging. The developers didn't put in all these theater elements to subtly hint that this is all some elaborate ruse. The developers put in these elements because they were dedicated to their game's theming, and they wanted you to feel like you were both playing a video game adventure and standing on top of a real stage. You've got to suspend your disbelief a little in order to get it, but hey, that's theater. I have discovered the most luck-dependent and unlikely to execute challenge in Mario Party history. This is the Master Koopa t-shirt. A special token of skill given out in Mario Party 7 single-player mode to anyone who reaches the top of the mountain stage Pagoda Peak with 100 coins in their pocket. But our goal isn't just to nab this t-shirt. I want to take this Mario challenge to the absolute extreme by challenging you to get 999 coins on this stage. Why is this so difficult? Because the match automatically ends if you reach the top with 100 coins or more, making it possible to lose everything over the slightest wrong roll of the dice. If you do get 999 coins, you will be rewarded with the super secret Koopa t-shirt. Just kidding. The developers didn't actually program that in because I'm sure the developers never expected anyone to be insane enough to attempt such a feat. But I'm sure once you get to the end of this video, you might be up to the Koopa t-shirt challenge. In order to understand this challenge, we have to understand the game mode it takes place in, Mario Party 7's single-player mode called Solo Cruise. In Solo Cruise, you play on the regular boards, but things are a little different. While there is a 30-turn limit to these matches, if those 30 turns expire, the match is ruled a tie. Instead, the way to win is to be the first player to get a certain requirement. This can be something simple, like Grand Canal's challenge to get 2 stars first, or it can be more complex, like Pyramid Park, which requires you to use chain chomps to steal the board's singular star from a bandit, or to steal it from your opponent if they nabbed it first. You then take the star to the Bowser Sphinx, which wins you the round. But the far and away most interesting win condition is the Pagoda Peak stage. So let's journey to this 4,000-year-old mountain to discover the Kung Fu Master's secret challenge. Pagoda Peak is one of those Mario Party stages that is completely linear with no forks in the road. In the regular party mode, instead of the star spawning randomly throughout the map, the star is always located at the end of a path atop the mountain. In Solo Cruise, the stars are replaced by something much more valuable, the Master Koopa t-shirt. Yes, a t-shirt. They could have had it be a lucky cat, a legendary sword, or a magic goblet, but nope, it's merch! Honestly, that's hilariously brilliant. The main setting of Mario Party 7 is a cruise taking the whole Mario gang, and a ghost and a skeleton for some reason, on a tour around the world. Each stage is based off different real-world locations like Egypt, Los Angeles, and Bowser. Since you're a tourist, it makes sense that your big prize for completing the challenge is nothing more than a measly souvenir. And what does this souvenir cost? 100 coins? Man, that's some price gouging right there, Master Koopa. 100 coins is enough money to buy 5 super powerful stars, or a magic piece of fungus that brings people back to life. Anyway, the object of this solo mode match is to get 100 coins and get to the top of the mountain to buy the most comfortable shirt ever sewn before your opponent. It's simple, it's fun. I just wish there was more. So, like I do with lots of these old games, I decided to create a challenge within a challenge. Did you know that in Mario Party you can say no to receiving a star? In pretty much any game, when you land on a star space with enough coins, the game will actually ask you if you want to buy the star. There's almost no strategic reason to ever say no to a star, and if you can think of one, please let me know in the comments below. The Koopa t-shirt, on the other hand, cannot be refused if you have enough money to purchase it. Sensei Koopa basically robs you of 100 coins when you make it to the top. If you or your opponent hit the top of the mountain with 100 coins, the match ends automatically. However, the maximum amount of coins you can hold is 999. There are 3 things we have to consider in order to do this challenge. 1. Get 999 coins. 2. Make sure we don't get to the top after getting 100 coins. And 3. Make sure our opponent doesn't get 100 coins and reach the top. Before doing the challenge, I had to come up with the perfect character to do this challenge with. I chose none other than the greediest Mario character around, Wario. Something fun about solo crews is that you make little profiles with your own favorite character and can even assign a name. So what should I name my new Wario profile? I know, Scrooge!
Humbug.
So Ebenezer Wario Scrooge heads off to Pagoda Peak to hit it rich on the mountain and come back with a boatload of Koopa t-shirts that he can then resell in the Mushroom Kingdom for maximum profit. Let's start with how we get 999 coins. Now, the blue spaces give 5 coins instead of the usual 3, but that's not gonna make that much of a difference. There are coin blocks every so often that give you either 5, 10, or 20 coins. Still not enough though. What about Donkey Kong? He can reward up to 30 coins if you win his minigame. Even with all these ways of making money on the mountain, you would never reach 999 within the 30-turn limit using these methods. But wait, there's one more way to make money on this board. The green mic spaces. In Mario Party 6 and 7, there was a little microphone that you could plug into your GameCube's memory card slot B. While there are many uses for the mic in this game, the only one that's relevant to this challenge are the green mic spaces. If you don't have a mic, you do have the option of pulling up the microphone commands by pressing the R button on your controller. When you land on a green mic space, they pull up this extremely easy memory game, where you have to remember fruit on cards. It's so easy a monkey could do it. So if this mic minigame is so simple, it probably wouldn't have that big of a reward, right? So what's the reward? 15 coins? An orb? Toadsworth's leftover sandwich? Nope. The reward is you can double your coins. You heard me right. This simple memory game has the potential to make you the richest Mario Party player who ever lived. Before playing the memory game, Toadsworth asks you to place a bet ranging from 1 to all of your coins with a maximum of 99. If you win the memory game, that bet is doubled. While you can't double insane numbers past 99, it's still the only way in the game to receive 99 coins at once. I seriously do not understand what the developers were thinking when they put this in. Some of the uses of the mic are really clever and interesting, but this is just unremarkable. You just say the name of the fruit into the mic. There's no special timing involved or anything. It's not any more enjoyable to play this game with or without the button controls. Why is it even a mic game? And when you turn mic content off completely, the spaces will just do nothing. No coins, no bonus, nada. You have to wait for Toadsworth to spawn his big mushroom and say a bunch of dialogue, and then nothing happens. It's almost like the developers are punishing you for not using their new gimmick. While the mic space is too unbalanced for a regular Mario Party match with friends, it is the only way to complete the Koopa t-shirt challenge. There are 3 mic spaces on Pagoda Peak. 1 less than 10 spaces from the start, and 2 towards the end. Since you can only double up to 99 coins at a time, you're going to have to go around the mountain at least 3 times. How do we do that without ending the match? This is the part where luck comes in. This space right here, 2 spots before the top of the mountain, is the most important space in all of this challenge. If you land on this space, you will be blasted from the top of the mountain all the way to the bottom. So that's it. You've just got to make sure you hit this space and get to the bottom. Well, why don't I just pull out my handy-dandy sluggish mushroom that allows me to roll any dice number I want? Wait, that item isn't available in Pagoda Peak! That's right, you're gonna have to deal with straight up 1 in 10 chances. No dice roll manipulation here. On your first go around on the mountain, make sure you have 99 or less coins in your pocket when you reach the top. You'll still want to have a decent amount of coins so you have something to build up on during your second go around. Once you're back on the bottom, ideally the second go around will go like this. First turn, hit the mic space in the first stretch. Double your coins. On the next turn, you're gonna be too far from the next mic space to properly hit it. So, ideally, you'll want to stop on one of these 3 duel spaces at the dojo. If your opponent is gaining coins, winning this duel and taking all or half their coins will raise your coin counter and lower theirs, keeping them under 100. Winning the duel minigame is almost guaranteed because only one duel minigame in Mario Party 7 is luck-based, Warp Pipe Dreams. And if you happen to get that minigame, as long as you remember which pipe goes where, you will almost certainly get yourself to the end before your slowpoke opponent gets anywhere. Once you do the only skill-based part of this challenge, you're back to hoping you get lucky, because the consequences of duels in Mario Party 7 are decided by the slot of stupendousness, which is Mushroom Kingdomese for luck-based. Bowser could also steal your coins, so you may want to practice the 3 single-player Bowser minigames before attempting this challenge. One thing you can't prepare for is that Koopa Kid might just show up and swap your coins with your opponent, basically ending the challenge. You can't control if it happens, you've just gotta deal with it. From there, you pretty much go back and forth, hoping you get mic spaces and the question mark space that sends you back to the start until you get 999 coins. It will take between 3 and 4 trips up the mountain, and it is extremely unlikely. So, there you have it. If you get all these 10% chances, you snag yourself a t-shirt with 899 coins to spare. If there are any statisticians in my audience, please let me know in the comments the actual probability of pulling this off. But why do this? What's the point? Don't ask me, ask Master Koopa. To the unwise individual, it may seem that this challenge can only be accomplished by the most lucky. Much like how the luckiest warrior will survive every battle just by virtue of missing every swing of his enemy's blade. Enlightened individuals, like Master Koopa himself, understand that it is actually perseverance that will grant us victory over even the most insurmountable challenge. Each failure gives way to a new opportunity to succeed. Every time we try, we get a chance to achieve the greatness of 999 coins. On the way there, we will get close. 400 coins, 700 coins, they could all be lost with one fell swoop, sending us back to the start. This lesson from Master Koopa teaches us that while luck exists all around us, it is only those of us who try and try again that will truly achieve greatness. This is a lesson that even I have not yet learned, because I did not actually do this challenge. That's right, I use save states. I'm sorry, Master Koopa, but I am not worthy of your legendary t-shirt. But maybe someone out there is. Do you have what it takes to persevere and make it to the top of Mario Party's highest mountain? Let me know in the comments below. With the Nintendo Switch getting remakes of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door and Super Mario RPG, fans are wondering if the Mario and Luigi series might get a chance on the Switch or the Switch 2. With the end of Alpha Dream, the company that produced the Mario and Luigi games, many believe that this incredible RPG series will cease to exist. However, a recent survey sent out by Nintendo heavily acknowledged the existence of the Mario and Luigi games. It asks a bunch of questions about which Mario RPGs people like and talks about if people want to see more returning characters or more new characters. It shows Nintendo is listening to the fans, and we may be seeing more interesting characters and mechanics in future Mario RPGs. Instead of covering the survey in depth, I want to use this Mario and Luigi survey as an opportunity to discuss what I have wanted to see in the Mario and Luigi series since the very beginning: monster collecting. I think it's genuinely possible that the Mario and Luigi series will go in the direction of monster collection with their next game, and that they've been testing the waters before our very eyes. This is Bowser's Minions and Bowser Jr.'s Journey,
pieces of side content present in the remake of Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story. The main feature of this side content is the ability to build different armies of Mario franchise enemies to use in fights against others. When I first saw this, I thought it was everything I ever wanted, and then I played it. These pieces of side content are a bit shallow. Most of the time, whether or not you'll win is decided by which team members you choose beforehand. During the battles, there is minimal opportunity to execute action commands or set off strategic moves. The rest is just watching the enemies knock into each other. But the bigger flaw with Bowser's Minions and Bowser Jr.'s journey is how we get the new team members. They just sort of join your team after battles. There's no going out of your way on a big world map to find the exact Bowser baddie you want. The map is mostly linear, with one battle happening pretty much right after the other. Something magical about Pokemon is how each player's experience is so different based on the team they put together. The Bowser Minions do not capture this magic at all. Both of these issues come from the fact that these pieces of side content are just that. Side content. What I'm hoping we'll see in the future is a full-fledged Monster Collection game set in the Mario & Luigi engine. But how would a game like this even work? What would the battles look like? Something that the Mario & Luigi series does well is making the player feel as though they are controlling multiple characters. You don't just play as Mario or Luigi, it's Mario and Luigi. They walk in tandem and you can control their actions with a corresponding button, being the A button for Mario and the B button for Luigi. In the overworld, you use these buttons to jump, use hammers, or perform other actions, and these button assignments are carried over to the battle system. When the series moved from the 2-button GBA to the 4-button DS, 2 more characters were added to Mario and Luigi, the babies, that were controlled with the X and Y button. The Switch has the same button layout as the DS, and that is how we navigate the gameplay in this hypothetical Monster Collection Mario & Luigi game. We will still have Mario and Luigi as the main fighters of this game. It just wouldn't be Mario and Luigi without it. There would still be the standard jump and hammer attacks that the bros are known for. Each bro would be followed by a Bowser minion of the player's choice that can be switched out in between battles. So let's walk through the possible options for a typical turn of this hypothetical game. Let's say you've got Mario, a Koopa Troopa, Luigi, and a Goomba in a tussle with these 2 Hammer Bros. When you start the battle, you have 3 tiers of choices: standard attacks, minion attacks, and bros attacks. Standard attacks are free. Minion attacks incur a small BP cost, and bros attacks incur a larger BP cost. Your standard attacks are things like the jump and hammer for the Mario Bros, and a basic attack from the minion. In place of a standard attack, you can also use an item or try to run away. If you're a coward, a minion attack has your Mario Bro team up with their respective minion for an attack. For example, Mario could kick his Koopa shell for more damage. If you use the minion attack, both that Mario Bro and their minion use their turn to do so. So you can't use a minion attack and then have your minion do a standard attack. They're both done for the turn. Then you've got the bros attacks, which have Mario and Luigi work together with their minions to attack the opponent. All 4 players going at their enemies at once. So now that we've talked about attacking, let's talk defending. Something that sets Mario and Luigi apart from an RPG like Pokemon is that when you are attacked, you get a chance to avoid your enemy's attacks and possibly even counterattack. You do this by pressing your character's corresponding button in order to avoid an incoming threat. Since there are 4 characters on the field, it could be too much to try and focus on 4 defending fighters at once. How do we solve this? We take a page out of Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, where Mario has the option to swap positions with his partner. In our game, Mario or Luigi can swap with their partner, and the 2 in the front are going to be the ones taking the attacks. There could still be some aerial attacks that can hit the back, but it'll never be more than what a player can handle. This encourages the player to understand enemy attack cycles and place their characters in the most optimal position to defend. So that's pretty much how the battle system would work. Oh wait! There would be one more element of battle exclusive to this game: capturing enemies. Something about Pokemon that I appreciate is that every single Pokemon that you fight in the game is theoretically obtainable
on your own team. Like that Pokemon that trainer just had? That Pokemon will be available somewhere within the game. I think the monster collecting Mario and Luigi game should follow the same philosophy. Every battleable enemy has the potential to be on your team. So, how do we get these enemies to join us? No, we're not going to use Pokeballs. I think we can do a little better than that. At first, I thought that the answer would be that whoever hypothetical villain this game has would be brainwashing these Bowser minions, and if you snap them out of the brainwashing, they join you. It's a fine idea, and probably what Nintendo would do. I find it too cliche. I toyed around with the idea of it being about respect. Like the Mario Bros fight so honorably that these guys, they just gotta join them. While that would feel earned by the player, I don't think there's a good way to implement that gameplay-wise. Then it hit me. Food! If you feed your enemies, it makes them want to be your friends. Most Paper Mario games include a chef character who cooks you dishes depending on the ingredients you bring them. While this is always a cool addition to the game, the cooking doesn't add much more than just it looks cooler and heals a little more health. If this Mario and Luigi game had a chef character, they would make dishes that correspond with making different Bowser baddies join your team. Maybe Goombas like to eat mushrooms, Cheep Cheeps like fried seaweed, give a Shy Guy a filet mignon steak dinner, I don't know. The possibilities are endless. So now, not only do we have a bunch of monsters to collect, but food items will be scattered all throughout the Mushroom Kingdom. You won't only be completing an encyclopedia of enemies, but a cookbook as well. It's a completionist's dream. So what sort of story would accompany a game like this? Personally, I like Bowser to not be the villain in Mario RPGs. I much prefer him as a rival character. Someone you can sometimes fight but also team up with against a common enemy. So I've got a great use for Bowser in this game. Damsel in distress. Whatever villain this game has will kidnap the King of Koopas and put the frame on Mario and Luigi. This is why Bowser's minions will at first attack you, thinking you've taken away their king. But once you calm them down with a nice meal, they realize that you weren't responsible and team up with you to save Bowser. But wait, why would Mario and Luigi want to save Bowser? Well, you know how every Mario and Luigi game has a star that everyone is trying to get a hold of? Bean Star, Cobalt Star, Dark Star, all that. Bowser's got a star too. And the villain wants to use that star to take over the Mushroom Kingdom. Whatever villain this is, they are much more tough and threatening than Bowser. And Mario and Luigi agree that it's better for Bowser to stay the greatest threat to the Mushroom Kingdom. I mean, the dude's so dumb he puts an axe behind him that drops him into lava. He's much easier to deal with. I'm sure I could go into a deeper story, but beyond that I would just be writing Mario fan fiction. And I would only do that if Illumination wanted to hire me to write one of the upcoming Mario movies. The reason I mentioned a story is to wrap a nice little bow on the kind of gameplay that I would hope to see in a future Mario and Luigi game. Will Nintendo do this? I can't know for sure. The one thing that makes me hopeful something like this could happen is the existence of things like Bowser's Minions and Bowser Jr.'s Journey. Other than that, this is nothing more than one big Pokemon and Mario fan hoping his two favorite franchises could come together in this way. Back before Super Mario Bros. Wonder was released, I discussed some possible unlockable characters that could be added to the game. I thought that Rosalina didn't even need to be discussed too thoroughly, as it was almost a given that she would show up in some capacity due to her being playable in Super Mario 3D World. Mainline Mario does not add playable characters willy-nilly, and I saw Rosalina's inclusion in this game as a sign that she would become Mario's go-to unlockable character. I was then proven wrong when Rosalina was absent from Super Mario Bros. Wonder, leaving only two princesses, Peach and Daisy. Daisy being playable was a big deal on its own in Wonder, since it's her first appearance in a mainline Mario game since Super Mario Land, where she looked like this. So why is it that Daisy got a spot in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, but Rosalina was left on the sidelines? The answer lies in how this strange and mysterious character has been used in the Mario series since her debut in Super Mario Galaxy. Let's take a look at the history of Rosalina and see if we can answer the question of whether or not she will be playable again in mainline Mario. Rosalina's first appearance was in Super Mario Galaxy. Besides being playable in 3D World, Galaxy is, to this day, her most prominent role in the franchise. Rosalina is the foundation of Super Mario Galaxy's story and game structure. She introduces the game's main gameplay mechanic, she is the owner of the game's hub world, and she is even who you speak to before you head off to fight the final boss. Rosalina also receives a deep backstory in this game. This backstory, which is told through a storybook, shows us how Rosalina met the Lumas, how she got into space, and even shows us the loss of her mother. This backstory is not something we often see in mainline Mario games, and is not something we have seen in a mainline Mario game since. This sort of characterization helped catapult Rosalina into a more prominent character within the Mario series in the years following Mario Galaxy. It wasn't long before Rosalina would appear in a spin-off title, Mario Kart Wii. Beyond being playable as a racer, Mario Kart Wii's Rainbow Road was heavily themed around Super Mario Galaxy. Then, when Super Mario Galaxy 2 came out, Rosalina got a little demotion. The role of the main guide of the game was taken by this dude, Lubba the Big Purple Star, and unfortunately we don't get to hear his tragic backstory. My theory, he was in prison. So, why don't you tell me in the comments why you think Lubba went to prison, and how he got out. Rosalina does appear in Mario Galaxy 2 in two capacities. If you fail a level enough times, she will show up as a weird ethereal deity and show you how to beat the level before politely telling you to get good. She appears again after defeating Bowser and delivers some of the game's final lines before taking back her star and stealing Mario's hat. She also introduces the Green Star quest after the player grabs all 120 normal power stars, and if you manage to get every single star in the game, she will just chill out on the ship. Her presence in Galaxy 2 still keeps her around as an important Mario character, but her more stunted role definitely contributed to her declining use in the Mario series in the years to come. In the Wii U and 3DS era, Rosalina's presence in the Mario series started to pick up again. Now she was a regular in the spin-offs, appearing in Mario Karts, Mario Parties, and Mario sports games. Then she got her playable spot in 3D World. But one of the highest honors of all that Rosalina achieved was her place in the roster of Super Smash Bros. Rosalina's inclusion in Smash truly should have cemented her as one of Mario's most important characters. Only the best of the best Mario characters get invited to Smash, but even with her presence in Super Smash Bros., as we got to the Switch era, Rosalina appeared less and less. I would say Rosalina really got taken down a peg when she didn't appear in Super Mario Odyssey. Mario even went to the moon in that game and didn't even bother to visit her. Rosalina should have showed up and collected taxes on him. As the rosters of games like Mario Kart and Smash Bros. Got larger, Rosalina's place in them only seems smaller. She became just another character. The interesting Space Queen with the deep backstory is now over a decade and a half old, and most of us skip the library entirely when we replay Galaxy. So with all this in mind about Rosalina as a character, let's ask ourselves why she got snubbed from Mario's most recent adventure. There is a clear gameplay reason why Rosalina was included in 3D World but wasn't included in Wonder. While both of these games feature multiple playable characters, they each take separate gameplay approaches to these characters. The characters in 3D World all have different stats and some get unique abilities. For example, Luigi jumps higher and Peach does a little floaty thing. Rosalina's ability is the spin jump from Mario Galaxy. While different characters have different abilities, their stats are all balanced so that one character isn't explicitly better or easier than another. While one could argue that Rosalina or Peach are better characters because of their abilities, it wasn't the developer's intent for these characters to make the game easier, rather to have them shake up the gameplay with different play styles. Mario Wonder has most of its characters play exactly the same. Luigi jumps the same height as Mario, and Peach can no longer do her floaty thing. The different abilities come from the equipable badges that can be applied to any character. The only characters who are different in Wonder are Yoshi and Nabbit, and that is not for the purpose of giving them different play styles. Yoshi and Nabbit don't take damage and can't receive power-ups. Yoshi also can do his signature flutter jump. The only difference in these characters comes from Nintendo hiding their difficulty settings behind the character selection, a decision that I still very much disagree with. I still think it would have been better for Mario Wonder to just include a setting that let you not take damage if you wanted the game to be a little easier. Mario Wonder also had no unlockable characters at all. While I understand this decision, since a new character would be nothing more than a cosmetic change, unlockable characters are just about one of the best rewards you can give a player in a game, and to not include them is a missed opportunity. And lastly, Mario Wonder has just about no post-game. Unlike 3D World's multiple secret worlds that give you a good unique chance to use Rosalina, Mario Wonder has one secret world with one level unlocked from each world and some final challenge levels. Not much of a post-game at all. Rosalina just doesn't fit into this gameplay structure. Her ethereal and mysterious nature almost requires her to be an unlockable character. And by being an unlockable character, players would expect some kind of special ability, which with Wonder's difficulty structure would cause Rosalina to become another easy mode character. Story-wise, it doesn't make sense to add her in either. What would the Queen of all the Stars care about some flower kingdom getting taken over? She's probably got better things to do. Makes sense that Daisy came along for the ride instead. I doubt she had other plans. So, what does this all tell us about the future inclusion of Rosalina in mainline Mario? Since Rosalina was snubbed from Super Mario Bros. Wonder due to gameplay and story reasons, rather than an attempt to phase her out of the franchise, it seems possible that she could turn up in a future Mario game that could use her. If we get another Galaxy installment, I could certainly see her being a part of that game, hopefully in a better capacity than Super Mario Galaxy 2. And even if there was an Odyssey 2, I could see her showing up to finally collect that moon tax. And there is also the possibility of a Mario Wonder DLC pack of sorts. Mario Wonder does lack a lot of post-game content, and perhaps Nintendo did that intentionally to add some DLC in the future. Or maybe she can even be a part of Peach's series. Princess Peach Showtime could be the start of something brand new, and possibly a sequel to that game could feature 4 players at once with Peach, Daisy, Rosalina, and Pauline. Rosalina is one of the newest major characters in the Mario series. Characters like Mario, Luigi, Peach, and even Wario have had nearly twice as much time to develop. She's still finding her place within the series, and I think while Mario Wonder is a big blow to her popularity as a character, it is by no means the end for the Mother of Stars. The Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remake introduced a number of improvements from its GameCube original, including a faster partner swapping system, more warp pipes that make it easier to move about the map, and the English version's inclusion of dialogue that affirms Vivian is trans. One quality of life change that I and some others were expecting was in how the game handles side quests. In the Thousand Year Door, you can accept one side quest at a time, and you cannot accept another one until your initial one is dealt with. This remained unchanged in the remake. This tiny distinction turns the Trouble Center, the place where you accept side quests, from one of the game's most immersive pieces of content to a completionist's tedious nightmare. Let's take a journey to Rogueport to check out the Trouble Center, see what's wrong with it, and call out the most annoying NPC in the entire game. The highlight of the Trouble Center is the advanced characterization that it brings to each character featured on the Trouble Board. One of Thousand Year Door's greatest strengths is its wonderful cast of characters, from the major partners down to the smallest NPCs. In these troubles, we get to learn a little bit about each NPC. Most of the troubles take place in Rogueport, the main hub world of the game, and I think that this sort of game mechanic being located in a setting like Rogueport is what makes it shine so much. Rogueport is an interesting hub world, to say the least. Compared to the mild-mannered Toad Town of the original, Rogueport is a bit more edgy. It's dirty, it's dingy, and it apparently embraces capital punishment. You'd think in a rough place like this you'd come up against some dangerous individuals, but you would be incorrect. In fact, there is only one Rogueport citizen who you actually fight in the game, Gus the Gatekeeper. And even he is just a down-on-his-luck little thief who Goombella refers to as a nice guy. Take this bandit who steals your 50 coins at the start of the game. You can chase him back to his house and it's this gross little place with roaches going all about. And he's all like, sorry about that. Man, I almost want to let him keep my 50 coins. Almost. I got badges to buy. One side quest I think highlights Rogueport quite well is Find This Guy, given to you by Goombther the Goomba. In the trouble, poor Goomther here is a victim of credit card fraud. So, you go and find the culprit, and you have to chase him around a little bit, finding him in different spots around the town. Once you corner the bandit, Goomther comes around and confronts the thief himself, even so much as implying he's going to kick his bandit butt. I feel like I just saw this little Goomba learn a valuable lesson about not trusting everybody. It's a nice little character arc for a guy we see just walking around the town square for most of the game. There are some more important characters who pose troubles on the board as well. One such major chapter character who requests a trouble is the Puny Elder, located in the Great Tree. This old leader of her tribe is looking for a little insurance policy in the form of the Life Shroom item. Thematically, this is funny because the Life Shroom is an item that revives Mario if he falls in battle. It also gives us another chance to interact with this character whose story significance has long passed. What I don't get is why the Puny Elder didn't just buy a Life Shroom over in Rogueport. Like, she had to go to the Trouble Center to post the trouble. They sell Life Shrooms just across town. You already came all this way, why not go buy one yourself? There are lots of other good troubles character-wise, but one more I want to touch on is Pine Tea Jr.'s trouble. This little toad is worried for his father, who, after losing his job, journeyed into the Pit of 100 Trials to gather coins for his family. What makes this trouble so impactful is that we as the player know how dangerous the Pit of 100 Trials is, and just by virtue of understanding that aspect of gameplay, we can understand what kind of danger Pine Tea Sr. is in. Around 25 floors in, we will come across Pinethan Toad all knocked out on the ground. Dude got beat up by a pokey? Really? They got like 4 HP. Once you take down this spiky threat, the toad will follow you down the pipes, cowering from danger at any other enemies you encounter. Once you get him back up to the surface, it's emotional reunion time. Something all these troubles have in common is that they are all great story-wise. However, they are not great gameplay-wise. Goomther's trouble just has you search around for this bandit. Puny Elder's trouble is just your standard fetch quest, and Pine Tea Jr.'s trouble takes place in a location you as the player are encouraged to go to anyway. This leads us to the trouble with the Trouble Center. Something a lot of Mario games succeed in is just how fun it is to move Mario around. Take a game like Mario Odyssey, where you bang ding woohoo all your way through the kingdoms. But that's a 3D platformer. This is a turn-based RPG with some platform-inspired overworld location. Going through chapters for the first time is usually pretty great. There are either interesting puzzles or platforms to work your way around, or a room full of new enemies to fight. Visiting these same places again after they've been cleared, however, is not conducive to enjoyable gameplay. And there's your main problem with the troubles. Most of them just have you walk to a place you've already been and talk to an NPC. If walking between these NPCs was a little more fun, then I wouldn't mind all this backtracking. This issue is not helped by the fact that you can only do one trouble at a time. So if there are multiple NPCs in one place with different troubles, for example, Mayor Kroop and Bubulber in Petalburg, you can't clear both of them in one trip. You have to go all the way back to Rogueport to individually take on each trouble. In order to illustrate the tedium that these troubles could present, I want to put Bubulber the hot dog gobbler on the spot. This guy. Oh, this guy really gets my goat. Bubulber's trouble asks for a hot dog. Note the letter A in his trouble, something that in the English language denotes a singular unit of something. Hot dogs are located in Chapter 3's Glitzville. It's an easy spot to ignore, so if you don't happen to have any hot dogs in your inventory, you'll need to take a trip up to Glitzville in order to come back down to Petalburg to give Bubulber his porky goodness. Not too bad. So once you get to Bubulber and give him the hot dog, he then asks if you can get him another one. What? So now you have to go back through Rogueport, back to Glitzville, buy another hot dog, and head all the way back to Petalburg. All right, here's your hot dog. We're done here, Flower Boy. All right? Now he wants a cake. A cake! I guess it's your birthday now. Need anything else, birthday boy? Want me to paint your garage? Mow your lawn? Draft your will for when I strangle you? No, I'm only off to save the world from an evil demon. I'm not busy. I'll just bake you a cake. You entitled. So, the way you get a cake is to get cake mix, which can be bought at the Pianta Parlor for 6 piantas. Then, when you get the cake mix, you bring it to Zesty, who will make it into a wonderful cake for the least deserving NPC in the Mushroom Kingdom, who will then reward you with a dried bouquet, an item that heals 1 HP. Okay, the dried bouquet isn't all bad. It is needed to complete all the recipes, so at least it wasn't all for nothing. The remake made the trips between Petalburg and Glitzville a little more bearable with the improved warp pipe locations, but is that really the bar here? Of course, if you know this trouble is coming, you can prepare with the hot dogs and the cake and only take 1 trip to Babulber. But that's just the thing. You would have to know that this was going to happen. There are a lot of players, myself included, who did not know that Babulber was gonna be this way and had to waste a ton of time backtracking. And the worst thing about this is that it's obviously intentional on the developers' part. They're trolling you. The developers literally said, hey, loyal player who is engaging with this more out-of-the-way aspect of our game, why don't we slap you in the face with this nonsense? Something I noticed while going through the troubles is that there are 0 new battles or enemies that come from the Trouble Center. Pretty much every trouble involves going to a place, talking to someone, maybe getting an item or something, but that's it. The combat is one of the best things about Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. It is its greatest gameplay strength. It's the reason everyone was clamoring for it to get remade, yet every side quest in the game either has no combat at all or requires you to fight enemies that you've already fought before. I said before that the greatest strength of the Trouble Center is its interaction with the incredible characters of the Thousand-Year Door. However, other than a few highlights, these interactions boil down to nothing more than a few more dialogue boxes and some shallow fetch questing. Despite these flaws, I do truly love the Trouble Center and all the characters we get to know better through it, except Babulber. With Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door's remake being such a big hit, many are wondering what will come next for the franchise. Hopefully, a main series game with a return to form is in order, but what is going to come next in the remake department? There are 2 possible answers. Some may say the clear-cut answer is a remake to the original Nintendo 64 Paper Mario, a game that arguably needed a remake even more than Thousand-Year Door, as its visuals and gameplay are far more dated. But there is some competition for this Nintendo 64 classic spot as Paper Mario's next remake, the wacky Super Paper Mario. Of these 2 vastly different Paper Mario entries, which one is most deserving of being brought into the future? Paper Mario is a series that just doesn't keep the same gameplay style. The first 2 games were a traditional turn-based RPG with platformer elements in the overworld. Then, Super Paper Mario forewent all turn-based combat and was this hybrid 2D platformer with RPG-like attack stats. Then there were 3 other games that I don't care about right now. They all had different sorts of gameplay too, often regarded as inferior to the first 3. Of all the Paper Mario games, the 2 that are most similar to each other are the original Paper Mario on the Nintendo 64 and Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. While the battle system isn't identical in these 2 games, the Thousand-Year Door's gameplay and battle engine is simply an upgraded version of the original. The gameplay of Super Paper Mario, however, is something that has never been seen before or since that game's release. But what's so special about Super's gameplay, and is it something worth preserving? What makes Super Paper Mario so unique is how it blends platformer gameplay and RPG stats. You walk around a map much like a standard Mario level, but when you come across an enemy, you do damage like you would in an RPG. This gameplay isn't perfect. I would say the biggest flaw of the game is the boss battles. 2D platformers aren't super great in the boss department, and Super Paper Mario is no exception. Some bosses have interesting ways of going about the fight, such as needing to throw
these little guys at Fractal's antenna, but most bosses just boil down to avoid attacks and jump on head. Compare this to a turn-based RPG like Thousand Year Door, where the boss battles are the most exciting part of the game and give the player an opportunity to take advantage of all the different kinds of combat the game has to offer. Another RPG element that falls flat in Super is the world itself feeling a little less lived in. A 2D space is inherently limited. It's difficult to convey a fleshed out world this way. While the dialogue and characterization in this game is fantastic, I will often feel a bit of a disconnect from this world. All these flaws wouldn't be fixed in a remake. It's just inherent to the kind of game Super is. So, of the two games, which one do I think deserves a remake more? I'm gonna throw my red cap in the ring and say that it's Super Paper Mario, not Paper Mario 64, that should be next on Nintendo's list of games to remake. I should acknowledge some of my personal bias, being that I actually prefer Super Paper Mario to Thousand Year Door and the original. My preference is purely just because I like dynamic games where you move around more as opposed to RPGs that are a little more stop and thinky. So I am not saying that Super is an objectively better game than Thousand Year Door. Super has far more flaws and gameplay issues. I just like its kind of gameplay more than RPGs. Beyond me just liking that kind of gameplay more, I think there are other more substantial reasons Super should get a remake over the original. Something that the remake of Thousand Year Door achieved was bringing the proper turn-based RPG gameplay from this era of Paper Mario into the modern era for modern audiences. A hypothetical remake of Paper Mario 64 would do nothing more than be an add-on to that. And if they were faithful in the remake and kept stuff like the partners not having their own health bars, the BP cap, and the lack of a pit of 100 trials, a Paper Mario 64 remake would feel like a massive downgrade. Super Paper Mario, on the other hand, has completely different gameplay than the first two, and a remake would give the current audience a chance to see that gameplay. While 64 would need significant improvements if remade, Super Paper Mario wouldn't need too many fundamental changes. The Thousand Year Door remake offered lots of improvements, mostly in the backtracking and fast navigation department. Super has a few of these issues too, but not as many as the Thousand Year Door. Still, there can be some fixes, such as making navigating flipside a little faster and making it less likely to get lost looking for that darn chocolate bar out in space. I feel so bad for Mario getting swirled around in these wormholes. But beyond quality of life changes, what about actual new content? The Thousand Year Door remake did have a distinct lack of brand new content. I guess the reason for this is that Thousand Year Door was already such a big game that it didn't need much new content. I don't agree with that, but that's a subject for another video. Thousand Year Door's most substantial new content was the inclusion of two super bosses, Prince Mush and the Whack-a-Bump guy. If Super Paper Mario added new content, they really wouldn't be able to get away with just adding two more super bosses, because the bosses just aren't that great in this game. I think a Super remake would absolutely have to have some kind of new area or post-game chapter. Even with Nintendo's stingy design philosophy regarding new content, I feel they would still have to do this. Super Paper Mario was pretty controversial when it came out, but honestly, the biggest crime this game committed was not being Thousand Year Door. It doesn't matter how good the gameplay of Super Paper Mario is, when you play it, you can't help but blame it for the end of proper turn-based RPG gameplay in the Paper Mario series, which is something that never properly returned to the series in a new installment to this very day. But with a Thousand Year Door remake, we are shown that Nintendo is looking to possibly go back to that style of Paper Mario game. So, a Super Paper Mario remake wouldn't trigger the same kind of animosity. Probably. The best timing for a Super Paper Mario remake would be sometime after the next new Paper Mario title, assuming that Paper Mario title is more in line with Thousand Year Door's gameplay, which hopefully is the direction Nintendo is heading. But then that begs the question, will we just repeat history? Will this then give way to Super Paper Mario getting its own sort of sequel game? And then will fans blame Super Paper Mario for ending the turn-based RPG gameplay once more? The solution for that would would be for 2D platformer Paper Mario and turn-based Paper Mario to coexist, kind of like how we have 3D Mario platformers and 2D Mario platformers. Other than the fact that Mario and some other characters look the same, these games really have nothing in common. Why are they even in the same series? I know that's a lot to ask for. We get Paper Mario games so rarely. Now I'm saying there should be 2 separate Paper Mario series? There probably isn't a profit incentive nor available infrastructure from Nintendo to make such a thing happen. And if we do happen to get something like Super Paper Mario again, it would probably suffer from the same kind of comparisons it got back when it was released. If you have access to Super Paper Mario, I really do encourage you to give it a try, and consider if this is the best remake for the future. I'm sure the safe route for Nintendo is for them to just remake 64, or possibly not remake any Paper Mario at all. Maybe Thousand Year Door was just that much of an outlier, and us expecting more remakes is wishful thinking. I'm just wondering if that, since the dust has settled on Super Paper Mario, are there fans out there of this game? Does anyone want to see its gameplay return? Let me know in the comments below. I didn't want to be that guy about this game. Everyone's enjoying it. It's a great step forward for the franchise. I really thought I wasn't gonna do this video, but here we are. Look, this isn't just about the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remake, not including the substantial new content I was hoping for. Okay, it's mostly about that. But I also realized something really major about why this is an unfortunate choice by the developers, and it may not be what you think. So, whether you agree or disagree with my stance on this game, I encourage you to sit back, relax, and listen to what I have to say before arguing in the comments. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door on Nintendo Switch did make a lot of changes from the original GameCube version, and did include some, albeit few, additions that weren't present in the original game. Besides graphical changes, there are a lot of quality of life changes to the game, such as a revamp to the fast travel pipe system in Rogueport sewers, and a larger amount of pipes and trampolines that make backtracking a little less tedious. Then there's stuff like the partner wheel, making storing and taking out items at the shop faster, and more cutscene skipping opportunities. Also, the Pianta Parlor slot machines have been replaced with a matching game, though this was only changed because it would have negatively impacted the age rating, similar to what happened with Pokemon and its Game Corner. If you're curious to hear more about how Pokemon dealt with its slot machines, I also did a video on that. But these additions aren't new content, they're just changes to previous content. In the realm of new content, I'll start by talking about the 2 new supporting characters, the Battle Master and Infumous. I think that's how you pronounce his name. The Battle Master allows you to practice your attacks and guards, and also gives some free advice on battles. Infumous can give you some tips about how you can complete your current trouble, which is this game's version of side quests. Battle Master is a cool inclusion, and even slightly contributes to 100% completion because his Goom boards contribute to the final tattle log. The Treble Mouse is kinda whatever. I like his existence, but he doesn't solve the main design flaw of the Trouble Center. If you're interested in exploring that design flaw, check out my video on the Trouble Center. These 2 characters are more so substantial just because they are redesigned Mario characters. The first time Paper Mario has seen such characters since Stickersar decided plain red toads are all we need. And now let's get to the new endgame content. The new super bosses, Prince Mush and Wacka. I'll start with the positives. It's really cool that you can battle these characters. Prince Mush is hyped up as this powerful fighter, so to see him in action is amazing. Poor Wacka has been getting smacked by Mario for decades now, so it's funny to see him attempt some well-deserved vengeance. The way you trigger these boss battles is a little meh. In order to fight Mush, you have to complete Jolene's side quest where you pick up all these dirty pants, and then after some time passes, you'll receive an email from Mush challenging you to a fight. Mush is basically just crowbarred into the game. He's just kind of like, yeah, come fight me, I guess. The Jolene quest is something that was already in the original, and it isn't even related to Prince Mush. Then there's Wacka, who is located at the bottom of the Pit of 100 Trials if you've already completed it once before and beaten the game.
Hey, future me here. So I wrote and recorded this before I attempted to fight Waka myself. Turns out, to get Waka to appear at the bottom of the pit of 100 trials, you need to smack him over and over again on Keel Hall Key until he stops returning. Then, similar to Prince Mush, you get an email that informs you of his presence. So yeah, I basically went through the second half of the Pit of 100 Trials all for nothing. I didn't end up getting to fight Waka, and I just don't have it in me to do it again. It's such a grind. The Pit of 100 Trials is this pit where you take on around 91 trials. Yeah, I don't know why it's called that either. The main challenge of the pit is that you can only save before entering floor 1. So if Mario falls at any point in the labyrinth, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. It's a great culmination of the game's battle system into an intense gauntlet of increasingly threatening enemies, culminating in an intense boss battle against Bone Tail, a 200 HP skeletal dragon. Then, to fight Waka, we just do the pit again, but this time with a funny boss instead of a scary one. The second time isn't as bad or tedious as the first. When you're going down the pit again, you can skip the first 50 floors by paying this little bug guy 300 coins. The last 50 floors are nothing special though, because it's the exact enemies you already fought. In fact, this time it's even easier because you're gonna have a larger level advantage from beating it the first time. Just like Prince Mush, Waka is crowbarred into the game. Could they have at least put in a new Pit of Trials with new enemies? It wouldn't have been as significant as a full-on new chapter, but it would have been something. New bosses also just aren't enough in terms of new content. Boss battles can be really fun, and both of these bosses offer unique and interesting challenges that you couldn't find in the original game. But bosses are over quick. It's just one fight. I find this new content to just not be substantial enough. I'm glad it's there. The game is definitely improved by the existence of these two bosses. I was hoping for more. Does that make me entitled? Maybe. Not. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is another Mario remake that released only a few months before the Thousand Year Door on Switch. The Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake included 2 new worlds. Technically 4, but the game does this thing where the second half of the game repeats the biomes of the first half with new levels, so it's only 2 new world themes, but 4 new worlds total. When it was announced that Mario vs. Donkey Kong would be getting new content, I was sure the upcoming Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remake would be getting a similar treatment. Now, there is one statement regarding this that I've seen floating around. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is a much smaller game than Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, so Thousand Year Door didn't need new content to justify its price tag. There are parts of this I can't dispute. Thousand Year Door absolutely does feel like a complete game, even without new content. I've put more time into it than other games I spent $60 on. This isn't about the price tag. It's about the principle, the missed opportunity of not having extra content. I really want you to ponder this. Since Nintendo did not include a new chapter in the remake, there will never be such an addition to Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door. Let's say the next Paper Mario used Thousand Year Door's mechanics. That's what we're all hoping for, right? That would be great, but it would be a new game. It would have to have different partners, different game balancing, slight differences in combat. There's never going to be another Thousand Year Door, and a remake is a rare opportunity to put something new into an old game. And that opportunity has now vanished. Completely impossible unless the game gets remade again in another 20 years. I think that's truly sad, and that's why I felt the need to make this video. The remake was incredible. Playing it reminded me just how amazing this game is, and that reminder only makes it all the more disappointing that there isn't that substantial new piece that this game deserved. Now I need to call out the advertising team for this game. Why? Why did you put the Battle Master Toad in the trailers without saying what he does or what he is? You had to have known that that was a fake out, right? Seriously, is no one else annoyed by this? Like, do the people who made this trailer seriously not know how game speculation happened? You can't just throw a mysterious new character into a trailer for a remake and then have that character do nothing
nothing more than a minor battle practice mode. You should have just been upfront about it. You should have just put, oh, new battle practice Toad, and that's it. Then we wouldn't have had to rack our brains thinking, ooh, what does this guy do? Oh, I bet it's special. Ooh, they're not telling us. It must be a secret. There was another thing in the trailer that bugged me, and it was them showing this Bowser intermission side-scrolling level. If you've never played this game, this must look awesome, right? I get to play Mario levels as Bowser? What is this? These levels are garbage. They're complete nothing content. There's no challenge, you become invincible almost immediately, and the levels are 5 seconds long. Them advertising this in the trailer made me assume that maybe they were gonna upgrade this part of the game, make it a little less terribly designed. But no, it was unchanged. I took issue with both of these inclusions in the trailer amounting to nothing. I think it shows that Nintendo thinks that just putting out basically the same game with no changes is fine. We're not gonna care about that Toad not really doing much. We're not gonna care that the Bowser intermissions are lame wastes of time. And maybe they're right. I don't see a lot of talk about this, and maybe people don't want to complain about the game because, as we know, Paper Mario could be a lot worse. Just playing anything that isn't the previous 3 games is enough to make anyone want to be nothing but positive about this game.
Let me know if you agree that the lack of new content in Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door is a flaw in how Nintendo approaches remakes. Or let me know if you think I'm complaining too much. Or if you don't feel like debating, just comment what your favorite chapter in the game is.
This babam incites fury and rage from anyone who has played the original Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door. But what did this guy do to deserve such a sordid reputation? At the beginning of Chapter 7, Mario must go to the moon to rescue Princess Peach. No, not that time. This is the first time he did it. In order to get there, he takes the most efficient form of travel, giant cannon. In the game, you are told there is only one babam capable of operating such a cannon, General White. But where is he? Well, the game leads you on this wild goose chase where you talk to a bunch of characters from previous chapters who are like, oh, I just saw him here, but he's not here anymore. He went here, talking about another previous chapter that you have to now revisit. And annoyed players had to drive their Yoshi to the next location. The remake made this more bearable, with the new pipe system beneath Rogueport allowing easier travel to each spot. But was this really a solution? It's still not fun to do. The whole point of the original General White chase is that the developers are messing with you. They're like, haha, you gotta go all the way to this other place, and then once you do find him, the game makes you jump on him way too many times while the text mocks you with how asleep he is. It's intentional tedium. I don't think that's good game design, by the way. It's super disrespectful to the audience. They pull this with the Babulber hot dog side quest too, which I talked about in my video on the Trouble Center. Go check that out, by the way. But this is even worse than the Babulber quest because it's not only required to complete the game, but it's placed at a time where the story is reaching its climax and you're eager to move forward. The pipe room solution in the remake keeps the original story beat, but removes the original cruel intent by the developers. While this is an improvement, it's still no fun to talk to a bunch of NPCs, no matter how short it is. Why is this fun game I play in my leisure time giving me a boring chore to do? And why is everyone treating this boring chore like it's suddenly fine just because it's a little shorter? Yeah, it's better to only have to clean a few dishes than it is to wash all the pots and pans, but video games aren't supposed to feel like doing the dishes. This flawed game design needed to be fixed at the root, completely reworked. I know this remake was quite faithful to the original, and there are a lot of positives in how well the game was preserved from its original GameCube glory, but this part of the game just didn't deserve to be preserved. There are 2 things the developers could have done. One would have been to just have General White already present at Far Outpost, saving you from needing to go anywhere at all. Let's just get to the moon and fight the X-Nauts already. But I think there could have been an even better solution. One
positive of the general white missing person search is that it's the game making the player visit each previous chapter one last time before getting into the final act of the game. The problem isn't so much that you have to revisit these places, it's that you don't do anything while you're there, and if you do happen to encounter an enemy, you'll blast it to bits with your Chapter 7 stats. So why not have it be that when Mario revisits each of these areas looking for General White, that area would be under attack? For example, the Great Tree could be under siege by the Piter Queen, or the inhabitants of Keel Hall Key could be dealing with, gonna go with sharks with legs. That's just off the top of my head. Mario can't ask about General White until he deals with each new threat. This gives Mario the opportunity to save these characters and these lands one more time, which makes the characters being seen before the Shadow Queen battle all that more meaningful. This would also tie together what is probably one of the greatest cutscenes in video game history, the cannon. I want to take a moment to appreciate just how incredible the cannon firing cutscene is. Beyond just looking cool, there's something magical about watching these bob-ombs militantly and competently set up and fire this massive cannon. The star of this cutscene is General White himself, who directs the cannon to the moon. He's supposed to act as this powerful general capable of this technological feat. This amazing cutscene does wash out the bad taste in your mouth that is the General White search. But if the General White search was actually interesting and meaningful gameplay, the cannon cutscene would work as the cherry on top, and General White's operating it would feel like a reward for going through all you did to find him. Instead, General White is pretty much unchanged from the original, other than just being made quicker with the pipe room. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for the pipe room, but it's a band-aid solution to a game design decision that is a stain on this great game.
Super Mario Party Jamboree is hopefully going to be one of the most content-packed Mario parties ever released. Already, we know we've got 21 confirmed playable characters, 7 confirmed boards, and 2 Bowsers. Wait, what? Yes, it seems Bowser is playing both sides in this trailer, appearing as both a playable character and a boss stage hazard character. How can this be? Well, the trailer gives us almost all the answers. So on the trailer's surface, we only clearly see playable Bowser in minigames, but if you zoom in on some of the shots of the stages, you can see a regular-sized Bowser waiting to start a match. So we know for sure he can be used in the board games. However, one of the boards puts giant Bowser smack in the middle. I get it. You could play as Bowser in every other board, but this one you can't play as him because he's the boss, right? Wrong again. The big Bowser isn't just on the Bowser stage. You can see his big turtle butt right here behind Mario's Rainbow Castle. And the most substantial evidence of all, here is tiny playable Bowser on the same board as giant Bowser. 2 Bowsers in one place. This means that Bowser is playable and a stage boss at the same time, with the main distinction being that the NPC Bowser is giant and purple. At first I was like, what? That's weird and clunky and immersion breaking, but then I really thought about it, and I actually respect the developers for making this decision. It might actually be a way to please almost everybody. In order to understand why it's good we have 2 Bowsers, let's take a look at Bowser's strange history in the Mario Party series. Unlike Mario Kart or Mario sports games that always include a playable Bowser, Mario Party has historically used Bowser for other roles rather than playable character. When Bowser isn't playable, he's always managing all the bad things that could happen to players throughout the game. Bowser's most prominent appearance throughout the Mario Party series is through the infamous Bowser Space. The Bowser Space is a Mario Party staple. It has appeared in every previous Mario Party except Super Mario Party, where it was replaced with Bad Luck Spaces. The reason I feel the Bowser Space succeeds as a good game mechanic is that it gives a personality to the negative thing happening to your player.
It's not just, oh no, you lost 20 coins, it's Bowser showed up and took your 20 coins. It's the same outcome gameplay-wise, yet the presentation gives us a stronger emotional reaction to the punishment. Bowser, like many all-ages cartoon villains, is also funny. The humor of Bowser softens the blow of the punishment. Sure, something bad happens, but there's something about Bowser's attitude that just makes him likable. Like, yeah, take my star, you big oaf. He's the perfect balance of threatening and jovial. The scariest outcome of the Bowser space is the 4-player Bowser minigame that throws each player into a minigame where they are tasked with surviving Bowser's sadistic acts. Losing players could find themselves having to give up all or half of their coins or possibly even a star. They are truly some of the most nail-biting minigames I've ever taken part of, and Bowser's presence only makes them all the more suspenseful. Bowser not only shows up on the Bowser space, but also has had other roles within Mario Party as well. One other Bowser role I would like to highlight is Bowser Time from Mario Party 7. There's this one Bowser Time where he summons one of those paintings with face cutouts and forces all the players to take a group photo. He then charges all the players either 10 or 20 coins for his excellent photography. Also, sometimes he will photobomb your photo. Oh, you goofball. Afterwards, Toadsworth remarks that you don't even get to keep the photo, so Bowser just kinda robbed you. But I like to think that Bowser actually keeps all the photos and hangs them up in his castle somewhere. When Bowser is a playable character, we lose this. Playable characters are often far less characterized and have to be able to fit into the mold that every other playable character fits into. They also have no dialogue. The first time Bowser was playable was Mario Party 10. Actually, it was the second time he was playable in the series. If you know the first time he was playable, comment below. When Bowser was added to Mario Party 10, the developers did something a little different so as to not lose his villain identity. Bowser is playable in this game using only the Wii U gamepad against 4 other players whom he chases around the board in a 4-versus-1 match that heavily favors Bowser winning. I actually think it's a pretty great mode, though a little flawed. I guess that's kinda how I feel about Mario Party 10 as a whole. Anyway, since Bowser mode in Mario Party 10 is its own mode, we still get the same kind of Bowser presence that previous Mario Party games had in the game's regular mode. You can also play as Bowser in a semi-normal capacity in Amiibo Party if you use a Bowser amiibo. While the board game element of Amiibo Party remains the same with Bowser, every minigame is now an automatic 1-versus-3 Bowser minigame from Bowser mode instead of a standard minigame. Also, Bowser doesn't get punished by Bowser spaces here. Little OP if you ask me. Then Bowser became playable just like any other character in Super Mario Party. This is where Bowser completely lost his identity. He's just another playable character. There's no humor, there's no threat, he's just another vessel you can play as. And hey, if you like Bowser and want to play as him, then this addition to the game is great. You get to play as a character you like, but bad luck spaces just aren't Bowser spaces. And Kamek just doesn't get the job done replacing Bowser as the host of negative spaces. Like, really? This Poindexter is gonna take my coins? It is kinda funny when Bowser lands on the bad luck space and Kamek is afraid of him. Super Mario Party Jamboree will definitely be combining the Super Mario Party playable Bowser with the threatening NPC Bowser of Mario Parties 1 through 10. Will we see anything similar to Mario Party 10's Bowser Party? Probably not. Bowser spaces are also confirmed to return in Jamboree. I wonder what will happen if playable Bowser lands on a Bowser space. I think it would be funny if the NPC Bowser is like, "Oh man, I hate to take your coins because you're so handsome, but I gotta do what I gotta do." Like, he doesn't even acknowledge it's 2 Bowsers. So now let's talk about immersion. I said before that I think that this is a good design choice by Nintendo, but it doesn't come without its issues. 2 Bowsers is weird. I'll say that much. It's a necessary weird, but it's weird. This isn't like a Goomba or a Koopa Troopa or a Hammer Bro where you see a bunch of them in one place. It's Bowser. He's kind of a singular entity. If you're a Bowser fan and want to play as Bowser, you're pretty much guaranteed to have your immersion illusion shattered just a little bit. You just aren't gonna be as afraid of Bowser if you are Bowser. Any other character, whether they be good or evil, would have a reason to fear the King of Koopas, but not Bowser himself. Now, is this a reason to make Bowser completely unplayable? Absolutely not. I think it's a worthy compromise, and it avoids the problem that the first Super Mario Party had where Bowser's presence was lost. But if there's one thing I really want to see from Bowser, it's some more of that classic Bowser chicanery like what we saw in Mario Party 7. Bowser has been a lot more monstrous in recent games, and hey, it's great to have a threatening villain, but Mario Party 7 struck such a balance between threatening Bowser and goofy, jovial Bowser that I really hope we see a return to. I think that's unlikely considering how monstrous this giant purple glow Bowser already looks, but we haven't seen any Bowser dialogue yet, so maybe we'll get a few quips. One last thing. I think with the return of Bowser spaces, I really would like to see something done about Lucky Spaces. I know in Mario Party Superstars they had Bowser spaces and Lucky Spaces, and the Lucky Spaces weren't represented by a character, but honestly, I think the positive counterpart to Bowser spaces should have a character represent them. In the past, Donkey Kong was the anti-Bowser, but hasn't been in quite a while. I don't need us to have two Donkey Kongs or anything, but having a character represent the Lucky Space would go a long way. And unlike the Bowser space that can pretty much only be given to Bowser, a Lucky Space has a lot of potential candidates of who could represent it. I know it's not gonna happen, but my vote is Toadsworth. Come on, he was the host in Mario Party 7, why not bring him back? And that's where we'll end this Bowser-focused video, on Toadsworth. All roads end with Toadsworth. Of the entire Mario series, Super Mario Land 1 and 2 are some of the most undeservedly forgotten entries to the franchise. Sure, you've got some more obscure titles like Hotel Mario and Mario's Time Machine, but Mario Land 1 and 2, I think, are the highest quality Mario games lost to time. What happened to these games? What legacy have they left on the Mario franchise, and why have they never seen a remake despite being nearly 30 years old? When I revisited Mario Land 1 for this video, I was surprised by just how short it is. 4 worlds of 3 levels apiece, which comes out to a full game of only 12 levels. I didn't remember it being this small. Considering this game came out in 1989, I won't fault it for having so few levels, especially because it does do a lot with those levels. Even with minimal graphics, Mario Land does succeed at feeling foreign, which is appropriate as it takes place in a different kingdom entirely. The only familiar faces you'll see are Goombas, Koopas, Bullet Bills, and Piranha Plants. Technically, the Goombas are a distinct species called Goombos, and the Bullet Bills are actually named Biff. The Koopas also don't act like they normally do. Instead of kicking the shells, the Koopa shells will explode after a few seconds. I always wondered why this was. Maybe it had to do with hardware limitations of the time, or perhaps it worked better with the simplistic level design. Whatever the case, the reason is probably also related to the strange behavior of the fire flower in this game, which bounces around like a retro DVD placeholder screen rather than moving like a fireball does in every other entry. The other, more unfamiliar enemies help differentiate Sarasaland, the main setting of Mario Land, from the Mushroom Kingdom. I especially like any Easter Island head looking enemy. That really makes it feel foreign and different. The game's villain, Tatanga the Alien, is one of, if not the least memorable Mario villain ever. Tatanga is mostly obscured by his spaceship, making his main design look like this. Obviously, it's a lot harder to make a memorable looking character with these sorts of graphics, but not impossible. I mean, the next game's final boss is pretty memorable, and even in this game we've got more interesting designs, such as this seahorse boss. This game is also the first appearance of Daisy. As far as what this game brought to the Mario franchise as a whole, the list practically begins and ends with Daisy. I can't think of any other major impact this game had on the franchise other than the Mario Land flower appearing in Super Mario Maker 2. Just about everything else from Mario Land 1, its villain, its setting, its characters, have been pretty much lost to time and not acknowledged in many other games at all. So that's Mario Land 1. Now, let's take a look at the sequel. the much more popular Super Mario Land 2 6 golden coins. The sequel to Super Mario Land looks much more similar to a traditional Mario game. It's still smaller than the home console Mario games, but for a handheld system at this time, this game was a breakthrough. The game has 6 main worlds, all of which have their own unique theme. Some of the level themes they did here haven't been done in the series to this very day. Some unique levels include a submarine, a beehive, this toy box place, some guy's house, and the belly of a whale. I also think the game has some great bosses. They're simplistic by today's standards, but pretty special for the time. The bosses all have interesting designs and fit each world theme well. It's kinda pathetic that this Game Boy game from 1992 has better boss design than Super Mario Bros. Wonder's 3 Bowser Jr.'s. Tatanga the alien also reappears as a boss in this game, but he's been demoted from final boss to world boss. He's just as unmemorable here. Him being confined to a spaceship just does not do his character justice. And then there's the final boss, Wario. Much like how Mario Land 1's biggest contribution to the franchise was the debut of Princess Daisy, Mario Land 2's biggest contribution was the creation of Wario. Unlike the original Mario Land, which is like a Game Boy test sold on shelves, Mario Land 2 is a full-on gaming experience. So why is it that this game never got any remakes? The biggest thing holding Mario Land 1 and 2 back is its dated graphics and lack of color. While even the NES Mario games can be revisited with an almost quaint look at how games used to be, Mario Land is tough to revisit. They're great games to control, but you have to actively move past the visual presentation in order to properly enjoy them. It's understandable that in a time where the only games you could play on the go looked like this, that it would be a great time. But nowadays, it's just not something that latches onto the old dopamine receptors. Even the aforementioned NES games got updated graphics in Super Mario All-Stars, and Super Mario Bros. 2, 3, and World got released on the Game Boy Advance with the Mario Advance series. There are many who find it unfortunate that the original Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels didn't end up on the Game Boy Advance in a Super Mario Advance title. And while I agree that it's a shame these NES classics didn't get that sort of release, they did get a graphical upgrade in Super Mario All-Stars. The Super Mario Land games, on the other hand, have never had their graphics updated in an official sense. And while the Mario Land games have been relatively available, they have only ever been released in their Game Boy form. Even just colorizing the games would have gone so far to make them seem less antiquated. Not only does the lack of a Super Mario Advance 5, Super Mario Land 1 and 2 mean that lots of people won't experience these games, it also means that the concepts and characters from these games don't get another chance to shine and find themselves forgotten by Nintendo and the public. I said before that pretty much no characters from these games other than Daisy and Wario have really been seen since. And that's because Nintendo knows that no one would know these characters, so why bring them back? So is it too late for these games to be remade? Well, the Mario Advance 5 ship sailed a long time ago, so it's definitely too late for that. But what are some other ways Mario Land could return? So would a remake of Super Mario Land 1 plus 2 work as a full-on Switch remake? Absolutely not. Even together, that would be a really small amount of content for $60. In order for these games to make a comeback, they would need to go the Mario vs. Donkey Kong route and have new levels in between the old ones. For the Mario Land 1 portion, I think each world would need one more level, as 3-level worlds just feels wrong. It's like, I just got here. We're already at a boss battle? Then it could use about 2 more full new worlds. One between worlds 2 and 3, and another between 3 and 4. I also think the final boss could use a second phase. I don't mind the design of a shooty plain boss battle, but it's not really final boss material. Also, Tatanga deserves to be seen outside the spaceship so his design can be done a little more justice. Then Mario Land 2 could use an extra 2 worlds to bring the world number up to the standard 8, and I think a secret world would be in order as well. Then you add some collectibles throughout the game like Mario Advance's Ace Coins and you've got yourself a proper remake. But perhaps instead of that, there's one more place that Super Mario Land could fit into nicely: Super Mario Maker.
One problem with using Mario Maker 3 to acknowledge Mario Land is that Mario Maker has always acknowledged the original graphics of the games it pulls from, and the main problem with Mario Land is its Game Boy graphics. However, if the developers decide to be generous enough to have Mario Land in Mario Maker 3, I think there's a lot they can do with it. They would just have to make an exception to the rule and have it appear with updated graphics rather than its original graphics. I also think they could just simply combine Mario Land 1 and 2, allowing you to place items and enemies from both games should you choose that game style. I also think that the original Mario Land 1 and 2 levels should appear in the story mode of Mario Maker 3. It would allow Nintendo to show off the new mode and give more of an incentive to buy the new Mario Maker while finally giving the Mario Land games a proper re-release. I do hope that if they did this, those wouldn't be the only story mode levels, because I liked the story mode in Mario Maker 2 and would like to see them make some new story mode levels in Mario Maker 3. Mario Land in Mario Maker 3 is a little unlikely for one big reason. The next Mario Maker is probably going to have a focus on Super Mario Bros. Wonder, as that is the most recent 2D Mario game. This will further disincentivize the developers from acknowledging Mario Land 1 and 2. And of the two games, it is clear that Wonder is more deserving of a spotlight. And I think that's representative of why the Mario Land games fell into obscurity. Every opportunity they've had for a remake has been overshadowed by other bigger things in the series. The Mario Advance series was more focused on the NES and SNES games, and then by the Wii era, the games were just too dated to justify any attention from Nintendo. Or perhaps Mario Land 1 and 2 are just too different from standard Mario. Their status as main series Mario has been inconsistent. Maybe the real reason these games have never been remade is because Nintendo wants you to view them as lesser titles. Sure, play them on the Game Boy Nintendo Switch Online service and look at this relic of the past, but it's not going to be remembered the way that we like to remember the original Super Mario Bros. Or Super Mario World or Super Mario Bros. 3. Those are our big games. Mario Land is just there. You think that's fair? Or do these strange entries to the franchise deserve more acknowledgement?
Yep, I bet that Nintendo Switch 2 is gonna be revealed any day now, right? What? New Nintendo reveal? Is it time? Oh, it's time, all right. Time to wake up with Alarmo. Yep, while PlayStation is dropping $700 upgrades, Nintendo is being Nintendo with their newest product, Alarmo, the Nintendo alarm clock. But what does it do? Alarmo isn't just an alarm clock that plays Nintendo music to wake you up. I mean, that's mostly what it is, but it also makes sound effects when you move around in the morning. For example, in the Mario Odyssey theme, it plays coin sounds as you're moving around in bed. So if you don't want to go to work, the coin sounds will remind you how much money you're gonna lose. And if you decide to sleep in, Bowser yells at you.
Get to work, you lazy Goomba, you're gonna hit traffic.
There are also some other features, such as bedtime sounds, and even a feature where you can have the top of each hour be brought about by a Nintendo sound effect. Bye-bye church bells. Hello, Pikmin. One criticism I have is that it seems the selection of sounds is going to be a little light. Sure, it's going to have free updates, but it doesn't seem like we're going to have too much to choose from with this product. I hope I find myself wrong with that. So, even though the Nintendo Switch 2 was leaked a few weeks back, which, by the way, check out my video covering those leaks, link in the description, Nintendo still seems to be sticking to whatever wacky reveal schedule they've got planned, which includes a sudden reveal of Nintendo's actual next console, an alarm clock. Or maybe this is our punishment for the leaks. You know what? No new console. Buy our alarm clock and get a job. No more video games. Jokes aside, I do think it's kind of beautiful how Nintendo wants to make products beyond just games and consoles. They don't always land as much as I think they would want them to, but I, for one, would like to see every appliance in my house Nintendo-fied. Especially you, toaster.
One of the best new additions to Super Mario Party Jamboree is its Pro rule set. I'll get into all of the details of what this competitive rule set is in a bit, but in a nutshell, the Pro rules set out to remove a lot of luck-based elements in favor of the more skill-based ones. This edition competition excites me because it could lead to Mario Party being taken seriously as a competitive game with the likes of Smash Bros. And Mario Kart, which is something I have been hoping to see for the series for a long time. However, there is one glaring issue with the Pro Rules. There is no toggling of the Pro Rules whatsoever. You play the way they say. And to make matters worse, a lot of these Pro Rules cannot be used in a standard Mario Party match. Why did the developers do this, and how does it affect the gameplay? Let's go over Mario Party Jamboree's rule sets and ask ourselves if the game rules are too strict. Let's start with a quick overview of the Pro rule set. 1. 12 turns only. 2. 1 bonus star, and you know what that bonus star is at the beginning of the game and can strategize around it. 3. Each player starts the game with 1 item chosen from a selected pool of standardized items, and also items are limited throughout the game. 4. Lucky spaces either give you 10 coins or double dice, and you get to choose which. 5. Bad luck spaces always give 7 of your coins to last place. 6. Bowser spaces always steal 1 star. 7. Hidden blocks and chance time spaces do not appear. And 8. You can try to steal a star when you duel another player. There's some other minor changes as well, but the ones I listed are the highlights. While these Pro rules are great, I've got a few nitpicks. Let's start with the big one. 12 measly turns. 12 turns is too low. I just think 20 turns is a better number. Mario Party is already a game you're committing a bit of time to. It's not like Smash or Mario Kart where the matches last less than 5 minutes most of the time. 12 turns just does not give you enough time to really take in the full game. I get why they went with 12 turns in the context of it being the standard Pro mode, and I wouldn't have such an issue with 12 turns being the default if they would just let us press 1 button to make a competitive game 20 turns. Maybe they made the turn count strict because of the item restrictions, but come on, was there really no other way around that? How about 24 turns and the items reset on turn 12? Would that have really been so hard? Also, while knowing what the bonus star is better than the alternative, being not knowing what the bonus star is, which effectively just grants 3 random stars to random players at the end of the match, I'm pretty much against having bonus stars at all. Whether you know what the bonus star is or not, I still think they're a very flawed mechanic. A star is the main thing you get in Mario Party, and you don't get many of them in a given game. Having a whole extra star be arbitrarily given because you traveled fewer spaces or whatever, it just feels like a handout to me. Again, knowing what it is helps this, but ideally there'd just be no bonus stars at all. And if you disagree with me, and you like bonus stars, I think you'll agree with me when I say that we should just be allowed to turn off the 1 bonus star. Or, should we choose, make it 3 bonus stars. I'm also kind of on the fence about the whole Bowser automatically stealing a star thing. In terms of gameplay, I think it's actually too harsh a punishment, and it's also a little boring. Bowser spaces in other contexts could do a variety of things. They can switch around players, they can even out the coins, and even trigger a stressful Bowser minigame. And yeah, sometimes Bowser just nabbed your star too, but he didn't do it every time. I think I would have personally rathered Bowser minigames to be triggered by the Bowser space instead of just losing the star. It gives the player a chance to defend themselves when they land on the space, or even rope in other players for a Bowser minigame. Ideally, it should have gone like this. When a Bowser space is landed on, it would trigger a 4-player Bowser minigame, where, if a player who didn't land on Bowser's space loses, they lose half their coins. And if the player who did land on the Bowser space loses, they lose a star. Or if they have no stars, all of their coins. But those are my nitpicks on the Pro rules. The Pro rules are not my main criticism of the game. My main criticism is that we do not get to change the rules as we see fit. The biggest flaw with the Pro rule set is that some of its best features are unusable in the standard party mode. For example, you can only duel with stars at stake in competitive mode. Why? This means that if you want to play a match where stars can be dueled for, you can only do so with the other fixed competitive rules, including the stunted 12 turns. Why couldn't regular mode just let you toggle competitive rule sets? Why is it that if I want to play a 30-turn game, I have to deal with things I hate like random hidden blocks and chance time? Not sure if this is a hot take or not, but chance time shouldn't exist. Period. It shouldn't even be toggleable. It is a creatively bankrupt addition to the game, and should have never been included in Mario Party. If you play Mario Party with chance time, there are no longer stakes to the game. The notion that you can suddenly switch your stars with an opponent with no possible way to defend yourself makes the entire game not matter. If you are a chance time defender, please enlighten me as to why the chance time is a valid addition to Mario Party, other than it being funny that players can suddenly switch stars. Like, yeah, I get it, it's humorous, but it's not good gameplay. I won't deny that that prospect shakes up the game, but I truly ask, how does this do anything other than give completely undeserved wins? And I know a lot of Mario Party is luck-based, but nothing in Mario Party compares to suddenly swapping stars. You can still control chance time and undeserved star-giving hidden blocks by simply restarting the turn if someone lands on it. It's not a perfect fix, but for all my fellow chance time and hidden block haters out there, there's your solution. But I would compromise with chance time just being toggleable, as well as hidden blocks, and also minigames. Why can't we choose which minigames appear in a given game? Personally, I hate button masher minigames. Just pressing A is not gameplay, and never should have been a part of Mario Party. Ideally, they wouldn't be in the game at all, but I'd settle for just being able to go into a list of minigames and choosing to have it not appear, similar to how we turn off certain items in Smash Bros. And one last thing. Why a 30-turn limit? It used to be 50. I get that most people don't play 50-turn games, but I do, and I would like to have them back, please. So now that I've ranted and raved about Nintendo's design decisions here, I'm gonna step into their shoes and ask why they made these decisions in the first place. Why does Mario Party, and Nintendo as a whole, insist on these restrictive game design decisions? My guess, it's because of game simplicity. They don't want new players to be bombarded with different choices as it can confuse them, and if new players choose settings that complicate the game for them too much, they may be turned off from the game as a whole. For example, a new player may not understand how long a 50-turn game actually is, and by ignorantly selecting it, they now ruin their own experience. For Nintendo, they think the solution to this is remove 50-turn games entirely. While I think this is why they made that choice, it does not mean I agree with it. There are better, more creative ways to find the middle road between too much restriction and confusing the newer players. One simple way to do so is to put some of the more advanced settings behind menus that you have to dig a little deeper for. Let's take the 50-turn problem for an example. By default, the maximum amount of turns could be 30, but you could have a setting deep in the options mode that reads, allow higher turn counts, which makes up to 50-turn games, or maybe even more, now selectable when setting up party mode. Maybe even make that option something you have to unlock by playing the story mode. This way, younger or newer players won't know about 50-turn games, while more experienced players will be able to play them as they choose. And, for extra security, have a disclaimer that games over 35 turns are really long and should only be played by dedicated players. The same should go for toggling which minigames, spaces, or items appear in a given game. Just hide them away in the option. Casual players would have no idea and will get to play a more simplified version of the game, while Mario Party veterans like myself, and I assume you, would find out how to change these settings by watching a YouTuber like me go over it. I do believe that more player choice is better, and I acknowledge that more player choice can confuse new players. However, removing player choice entirely is not an acceptable solution to that problem, and it led to worsening my experience of an otherwise excellent game. All in all, Pro Mode is a great addition, and it means that the developers did care about their veteran players when designing the game. However, I look forward to the day that Nintendo games stop telling us how to play their games and give us the freedom to play their games the way that we choose. One of my most anticipated pieces of content in Super Mario Party Jamboree was its story mode. I have felt that in recent years, Mario Party games have heavily lacked single-player content, and I was happy to see Jamboree change this trend. I really wanted to like the story mode, also known as Party Planner Trek. And I understood that it probably wouldn't be that in-depth of a mode, but when I played through it, I noticed far too many shortcomings. What went wrong with Party Planner Trek? Let's go over its flaws and ask ourselves how this mode could have been done better. Most of the story mode consists of playing minigames, which is fine. The minigames are the best part of Mario Party. However, I realized quickly that the CPUs you go up against in these minigames are not on hard difficulty. I'm not sure exactly what the difficulty setting is in story mode, but even in the final stage, the CPUs are definitely not set to hard. Just take a look at the results of the minigame Twist and Sort in the story mode's final stage. Here, the CPUs don't even crack 10 points, as opposed to these CPUs set to hard difficulty, who got around 15 points. Either the CPUs are all the same difficulty the entire game, or they progress from easy to medium throughout the playthrough. Whatever the case, this untoggleable easy difficulty ruined just about every minigame I played throughout the story mode. It's a real shame this is the case, especially because the story mode is where I first played a lot of the Jamboree Buddy minigame, which were a lot of fun and really needed the added challenge of higher difficulty. The worst part about this difficulty issue is that it has a clear fix. Allow the player to set the difficulty of the CPUs before starting story mode. Mario Party 5 allowed you to select the difficulty before beginning story mode, and that made for a more challenging experience. Though Mario Party 5 story mode was also extremely unfair at times, so not every Mario Party story mode is perfect, I guess. Unfortunately, Nintendo hates the concept of simple difficulty settings in their games. It is a design philosophy that continues to disrespect more experienced players in favor of newer players. Nintendo doesn't like the idea of making a newer player, or a little kid, feel bad about having to select easy difficulty. In Super Mario Bros. Wonder, they made Yoshi an easy mode character who cannot take damage. This way, an easy mode is present in the game without being so blatant. While I think that's just an awful design choice, what they did with Jamboree's story mode is even worse, as it means that everyone has to play the easy mode no matter what. Imagine if, instead of Yoshi not being able to take damage, every character in Mario Wonder was invincible. That's the level of easiness we're dealing with here. But even an overly simple game can still be enjoyable if it at least has good presentation. So, how did Party Planner Trek do in terms of concept? The story of Party Planner Trek is that it takes place before any Mario parties have been played, and you are taking on the role of the party planner. The defining image of this mode are the blank spaces on the board. When I saw these blank spaces, I thought that meant you as the player would eventually turn them into the spaces we see in the main game. Then I played it, and we don't do that at all. Why even have the spaces be blank if you don't, make them unblank? There are also all these decorations you get throughout the game. It's cool to get these collectibles, and it's fun to customize the Party Plaza hub world, but did anyone else feel like it was strongly implying that you would use these decorations on the boards themselves? Like, you get them in story mode. The story mode is about setting up the boards, and you can even go look at your decorations while you're going around the story mode board. But you don't use the decorations in story mode. You use them outside of story mode. Do you see my issue here? It seems that the story mode lends itself to the idea of customization, yet the design of Super Mario Party Jamboree is
anti-customization. If you saw my previous criticism video on Super Mario Party Jamboree, link in the description by the way, you would have seen that one of my complaints about the game is that you don't have any control over certain elements appearing in a given game of Mario Party. For me, I am not a fan of the chance time space, as I think it ruins the stakes of the game. Another complaint I've heard is that there are far too many lucky spaces and far too few red spaces. With the story mode being a party planner with all these blank spaces, we as the player should have been able to place spaces and edit the boards as we see fit. Want to remove chance time? Want fewer lucky spaces? Maybe you want 5 Bowser spaces. And if a player is going a little too crazy, like trying to make the whole board a bunch of chance time spaces, well, put a few restrictions on that. But if Party Planner Trek doesn't actually have you plan out a party, what does it do? The main thing you do is collect mini-stars by playing mini-games. I guess mini-stars are powerful, so they give you power to set up parties better? Kind of a stretch from the theming of the mode, but whatever. Like I said before, you mainly get mini-stars by playing mini-games, but there are also side quests. Now, to be fair, the mini-games and the side quests do often exist within the context of setting up for the party, but I just don't think it was enough to justify the party planning theme. Speaking of side quests, let's move on to my next criticism. Sometimes you will talk to certain NPCs and they will ask you to go look for an item. You then go somewhere else on the board, find the item, and bring it to that NPC for a reward, which is usually something mini-star related. It's a simple fetch quest. Video games have been doing them for decades and they're usually executed poorly. The problem with these fetch quests is that they are on this gridded map. Your character isn't fun to control because you aren't controlling the character. You are controlling which spaces they move to. It's like walking through a world map rather than walking through a level. One way I think these fetch quests could have been improved would have been to ditch the whole move around the board spaces thing entirely. Instead, you should move freely around the map, with the empty spaces serving as the main pathway with some of the rewards and quests being located off of them. A fetch quest is only as fun as your character's movement. If it's not fun to move around my character, why would I enjoy trekking around the map gathering a series of loosely related objects? There's one other sort of side quest I object to, the Lakitu quizzes. Now, I don't have an issue with in-game quizzes, even if they are easy to answer or have no penalty for failure. I like that Lakitu encourages the player to pay attention to the world and learn a little about it in order to answer his quizzes correctly. It's a great way to immerse players. What I take issue with is that Lakitu asks 10 quiz questions, all of which grant a mini-star. You only need 30 mini-stars to progress to the next world, so that means that 1 in 3 mini-stars needed for base completion can come from this. Now, I ask, who is this for? The completionists who want every mini-star are going to answer every quiz question, whether Lakitu gave out 10 or 5 or even 1 mini-star. And newer players are just going to find themselves rushed to the next boss after answering all the questions, causing them to engage with fewer minigames. Honestly, I think the players who benefit the most from Lakitu's free mini-star quizzes are players like me, who just want to get through the story mode already as they're sick of playing minigames against easy CPUs. I realized that that's what I was using Lakitu for when I was about halfway through story mode, and that made me really sad. Like, I wanted story mode so much. I even made a video about how much I wanted it before story mode was even announced. And here I am, plowing through easy quiz questions just so it'll be over quicker. I've got one last big criticism coming up, the boss design. But before I get into that, did you know I actually played the story mode on my livestream? If you want to watch the edited highlights of my story mode livestream, check out this video right here, link in the description, or check out my second channel, Game Cubicle Plays, for other stream highlight videos, many of which are of Super Mario Party Jamboree. That's also linked in the description. The bosses were a highly anticipated addition to Super Mario Party Jamboree, and I would say that every single boss works great on their own. but their implementation in the story mode leaves a lot to be desired. See, boss minigames in Mario Party aren't exactly the same as boss battles in a standard Mario game. The point of a Mario Party boss minigame is not just to defeat the boss. The point of a boss minigame is to defeat your opponent by defeating the boss better than them. Basically, you all go at this big bad boss and you each get a score for how many times you hit the boss, or you get a score for how well you hit the boss. There's also a bonus for being the last one to hit the boss before they go poof. In Jamboree, I am pretty sure the boss minigames only function like this in the Pro mode if a player lands on a versus space and that player chooses a boss fight minigame, which is, not often. I landed on a versus space while playing Pro mode, and I gotta tell you, I didn't feel like I had the best chance of winning the boss minigame, so I just chose a minigame I was more confident in. However, they can still appear in Pro mode, and when they do, they function extremely well. I do wish the game forced them on you every so often, just so they'd have more of a presence. I like them a lot, but I'm not gonna pick a minigame I might lose just cause it's more exciting. The problem with the bosses in the story mode is that the competition element with the other players is removed, and the game acts like you and the 3 other players are working together to beat the boss. Now, on its own, this wouldn't be such a bad thing. You go up against a big bad boss with some backup. However, the gameplay of the boss minigames remain almost completely unchanged. The only differences between a boss minigame in Pro mode and a boss minigame in story mode is that there is no bonus for getting the last hit, and the story mode boss battles have a time limit that causes you to fail the boss battle should that timer hit 0, which, if you have any teammates, trust me, it will not. There is even still a score for each player, but the game still acts like you won even if you got last place. The score each player gets in the boss battle is completely arbitrary, and it doesn't even give you a smooth option to try again to at least challenge yourself to quote-unquote win the boss battle. Your teammates are 2 buddies you picked up by playing Jamboree buddy minigames throughout the map, and 1 non-Jamboree buddy character also found on the map. If you don't gather a teammate, they won't appear with you in the boss minigame, meaning you can go at the boss with fewer than 4 players and even fight it alone if you so choose. And it was while playing the boss battles that it really clicked with me what the problem was with Party Planner Trek. This whole story mode was an afterthought by the developers, thrown in late into the process of making the game. I'm sure of it. Think about it. It wasn't in any of the initial reveal trailer, and it wasn't shown off until mere weeks before the game's release. There are no new minigames, character models, or boards designed just for story mode, and the story mode seems to crowbar in elements from the game rather than implement them organically. Like, just look at how item minigames are used in story mode. Item minigames are completely unlosable in story mode, since no matter which item you get, you are granted a mini-star and some pointless dialogue about you being lucky or whatever. Why even have item minigames here at all? They don't translate to a mode that doesn't have you use items in it. Why not have some of these side quest items be available in item minigames? It's because that would require the developers to create something unique around the story mode, and they weren't willing to do that. Probably because they needed to ship the game soon. That's why I think the boss battles were so lazily unchanged from their competition minigame counterparts. They just took the already developed boss battles and slapped them on story mode. But if that's the case, why put Party Planner Trek in the game at all? I mean, they've gotten away with not adding story mode since as far back as Mario Party 10. Why rush to add in a half-measure story mode to a game that's already pretty complete? Honestly, I'm not sure why they did it. But to tell you the truth, I'm still glad we got this story mode. Not because I liked the story mode itself, I don't. It was terrible for all the reasons I stated above, and many more reasons that I didn't have time to go over in this video. But they are mentioned in my playthrough video over on Game Cubicle Plays. I'm glad we got a story mode because it means that the developers of these Mario-themed party games have finally acknowledged that dedicated offline single-player story-based content is at the very least something worth their time. It clearly wasn't worth a lot of their time. I can tell by the quality, but hey, they put it here. They put a story. And maybe it was just to test the waters, see if it was something people would respond to. So, if that's the case, here's my response. Please try again, because I know you can do better. You can make us a story mode that properly subverts the Mario Party gameplay into a single-player experience. You can make us a story mode with a decently compelling narrative, and you can make a story mode that's decently challenging for players of all skill levels. Next time, start your game design with the story and create the rest of the game around it. Don't make it an afterthought. There are many retired Mario characters who haven't been seen in ages and probably will not be seen again. Koopa Kid, Toadsworth, these little alien guys, all of these characters have not stood the test of time for one reason or another. Today I want to talk about one such retired character that really should have been taken out of retirement in Mario Party's most recent entry, Super Mario Party Jamboree. I am talking about the Pink Boo. Who were these brightly colored boos? Why were they created? Why have they been removed? And why do I think they should come back? Pink Boos were created, I think, for one main reason: to act as a certain NPC when the regular white Boo is otherwise preoccupied, either by being a playable character or, in the case of Mario Party 4, being one of the game's main hosts. Pink Boos appeared sparingly from Mario Parties 4 through 8, but I would say their most prominent appearances were in Mario Parties 6 and 7. In Mario Party 6, Pink Boo was a major stage event that stole coins or stars from your opponents. And in Mario Party 7, Pink Boo was given the high honor of being the star-stealing trap. The reason these appearances are so important is because it makes Pink Boo responsible for stealing a player's star, which is one of the most impactful actions in all of Mario Party. Depending on what side of the steal you were on, this was either the face of doom or the face of victory. Pink Boos also appeared in any Boo-themed minigame such as Bonanza or Ghost in the Hall. The reason these Boos were pinkified is because the standard white Boo was a playable character. So if you were playing as the white Boo, you wouldn't be looking in a mirror during these minigames or during these board events. Mario Party has always had a strange relationship with whether or not a character should be playable or if a character should be an NPC. Just look at the back and forth struggle between the playable and NPC statuses of Bowser and Donkey Kong, who have long flip-flopped from being the owners of their own spaces and proprietors of theme minigames to playable characters. But this NPC/playable character mutual exclusivity reaches beyond just Donkey Kong and Bowser. Just look at how Toad and Toadette were unplayable in both Super Mario Party and Mario Party Superstars so that they could host the game. Too bad no other kind of Toad was available to be the host. Nope. It had to be them. Super Mario Party Jamboree decided to let go of a lot of these creative restrictions in favor of allowing more playable characters, much to the delight of the fans who wanted to see a roster as large as Jamboree's. Jamboree takes two approaches to balancing its use of playable characters and NPCs. The first approach is, if there is an NPC who is the same species as a playable character, that character will usually appear as an alternate color or with some sort of costume. For example, the Shy Guy in Shy Guy Says, who was red in other incarnations, is yellow in Jamboree so as to not contrast with the playable red Shy Guy. Also, the Goombas in Goomba Lagoon wear these little pirate bandanas so as to not be confused with the playable Goomba. And of course, you have got the giant glowing imposter Bowser, who is distinct from the normal-sized non-glowing Bowser. And if you want to hear more about imposter Bowser, check out my video on the subject, link in the description. The other approach to balancing playable and NPC characters is to just straight up ignore it, which is exactly what they did with Boo. Instead of NPC Boo being a different color or even having some sort of distinguishing feature, he is just identical to the playable Boo. This decision is made worse by the fact that Boo is one of the most important NPCs in Super Mario Party Jamboree, as he is the one who steals stars
scores from opponents, a major part of winning the game. It's not that it's confusing. I don't find myself losing track of the game because the same Boo I'm playing against is also the Boo that's stealing stars. It also isn't immersion breaking because in-universe Boo is not a singular person but instead is its own species. Wait, is species the right word to use when talking about ghosts? Are ghosts a species? It's its own kind of entity. Really, the problem with Boo being both the coin and star thief as well as a playable character is that it's just a little repetitive. It's like this character already has a pretty prominent role in the game, being playable and all, but he's also this board event that appears on every board in the game. And this is made worse by the fact that there already was a character who should have filled this role, the Pink Boo. It would have been a nice callback to older Mario Party. It would have given us a new character to engage with. Really, the Pink Boo has just a little bit more personality. I always saw the Pink Boo as a bit more mischievous of a Boo. Maybe it's because of some of the Pink Boo dialogue, like this line, where Pink Boo says, "Daytime is so lame," like sassy. The Pink Boo just comes off as a more chaotic character. The roles just fit so well. The standard Boo got to be playable. Pink Boo got to be an NPC. It was a good system. Why change it? But this is so much more than just a cosmetic difference. The lack of the Pink Boo in Super Mario Party Jamboree is actually indicative of a larger pattern of game design that limits the way certain characters are used within the game. Even though it's not confusing for the White Boo to be used as a board event, even when the White Boo is playable, it certainly would be confusing for White Boo to be used in mini-games as an NPC. So, for the most part, Boos are absent from Jamboree's minigames in a way they wouldn't have been if they were pink. Take, for example, the minigame Bonanza from Mario Party 6. This dual minigame challenges the player to herd these pink Boos into their respective corrals. If these Boos were white and not pink, this minigame would work terribly with a playable Boo. So, in a game where Pink Boo is not an option, Bonanza isn't an option either. But this affects more than just Boo-related minigames. Take, for example, the minigame Royal Rumpus from Mario Party 7. In this dual minigame, you and an opponent have to squish as many Goombas as you can before the timer runs out. In a game where Goomba is playable, you couldn't include Royal Rumpus, as the Goomba player would not be able to see where they are standing. They'd get too mixed up. However, if you turned Royal Rumpus into a castle-themed game and turned the Goombas silver, like the castle Goombas seen in Super Mario All-Stars, you could now include that minigame in a game where the brown Goomba is playable. This design philosophy not only affects previous minigames being remade, but it also restricts the possibility of using these NPC characters in new minigames. This means that the NPC characters who you will see in new minigames will overwhelmingly be the NPCs who have pre-established alternate skins. You'll be seeing a lot more minigames that include Toads or Shy Guys and a lot fewer minigames including Goombas and Boos. But really, the lack of pink Boos in Super Mario Party Jamboree only speaks to a more restrictive attitude on the developers towards the inclusion of more unique characters within the game. I mentioned at the beginning of this video characters like Koopa Kid, Toadsworth, and even these little alien guys, and I just kind of miss when Mario Party and the Mario series as a whole could include wacky characters like that. It seems now that every character is so carefully chosen, almost like they had to go through a multitude of executives in order to put each character in the game. Which, let's be real, that's exactly what happens now. Maybe there was a real discussion to put Pink Boo into the game. The idea must have come up at least once throughout development, so why not have Pink Boo in this game when Pink Boo was in past games? I think it just speaks to a wariness on the part of the developers to really expand upon the cast of characters they already have, and in a way, I do understand their perspective. For every character you add, even a character as simple as an alternate coloration, you have to consider a multitude of different impacts that could have on the rest of the game. You have to consider that character's color contrast to the stage and other characters. You have to consider their personality. You have to consider if they'll be immediately recognizable in their role. You have to consider if they'll be disliked. The current Mario Party developers may not even own the rights to the Pink Boo design at all, since a different studio made the Mario parties that the Pink Boo was in. The bottom line is, the standard white Boo was already pre-approved to be in the game, as that Boo is a Mario staple. The Pink Boo hasn't been seen since Mario Party 8, and it would probably have taken a lot of red tape to put Pink Pink Boo into the game, so the developers decided to take the safe route. But those are my thoughts on the Pink Boo. What do you think? Do you remember Pink Boo? Do you think it should come back to Mario Party? Let me know in the comments below. When I started playing Mario and Luigi Brothership, I noticed one glaring change almost immediately. In battle, when you select an attack with Luigi, you use the A button instead of B. Now, is this a big enough deal to warrant an entire video? Not on its own, no. However, this detail is indicative of a major change that Mario and Luigi Brothership has made compared to its predecessors. In fact, despite the title emphasizing the close bond between these two brothers, Brothership is actually the game that divides them the most. How can this be? Let's find out. Mario and Luigi is a game series where you play as both Mario and Luigi. An obvious observation, I know, but have you ever actually thought about how special that was? Sure, plenty of games have multiple playable protagonists, but Mario and Luigi so uniquely and fluidly made you feel like you were playing as and controlling both characters at the same time. This feeling was accomplished by assigning the A button for actions taken by Mario and the B button for actions taken by Luigi. In some Mario and Luigi games that feature more playable characters, they have sometimes assigned the X and Y buttons to mimic the same feeling with a larger party. Now, while this A and B control system helped make players feel a better sense of control over the brothers, it did lead to the game feeling strange in terms of menus. See, it's pretty much video game law that A is used for selection and B is used for deselection. Sometimes I even think of the B button as the back button. I can't be the only one, right? In previous Mario and Luigi games, during battle, you would always use the A button to select options with Mario and the B button to select options with Luigi. Since the main selections in battle look like blocks, pressing the button just makes you feel like you're making the brother jump into the selection. From there, using B to make the smaller sub-selections felt more natural. However, if B is used to make selections in battle, what button do I use to go back if I change my mind? That honor went to the L button. It takes a small amount of getting used to, but all in all, the A and B selection and jumping method worked perfectly well in previous Mario and Luigi games, and was the right trade-off in terms of having pretty unorthodox gameplay in exchange for a feeling of controlling two characters at once. This was not only important to the gameplay, but it was also important to the theming of the game. The main theme of the Mario and Luigi series is teamwork. And by controlling both brothers at the same time, you truly feel like they're a team. It's not like other RPGs, like for example, Pokemon, where yes, you have a team of 6 Pokemon, but you as the player are the trainer giving them commands. Superstar Saga did make the mistake of sometimes switching who used A and B when you changed who the leader was. I always hated that. But other than that, the A and B system was super well implemented. Then some jerk involved in developing Brothership decided to say, I've got an idea, and now Luigi selects his attacks with the A button. What makes this such a poor design choice is that Luigi is still primarily controlled by the B button. So after you select the attack with A and then select the enemy you're attacking also with A, 2 A presses, you now have to switch to B in order to properly hit the action command. To make matters worse, they could have just had a game setting that allows you to switch the way you select with Luigi. I even looked to see if there was one. I paused the game, I saw there's a little settings menu here, I hover over it, and rumble. That's the only setting. Why even call it a settings plural at that point? If that's not a representation of Nintendo's strict game customization, I don't know what is. And if you want to get more frustrated about Nintendo's game customization restrictions, check out my video on Mario Party Jamboree's far too restrictive pro rules right after this one. Link in the description. Now, I'm trying to step into the developer's shoes and understand why they did this Luigi selection nonsense. But honestly, I'm stumped. It's obviously not for simplicity. It's not simpler to do it this way. If I had to guess, I
stink. There is so much bureaucracy and red tape going on over at these game studios that they can't even get something as simple as using a different button to select something without having like 50 board meetings. Compared to past games, this change makes me feel less like I'm playing as Luigi, and more so that I'm just playing as Mario and Luigi's along for the ride. There are even more game design choices that make me feel this way. In fact, I would go as far to say that Mario and Luigi Brothership basically makes Luigi an NPC. There is an interesting direction the developers took with Luigi in this game. In most of Mario and Luigi, Luigi is the more cowardly brother who is reluctant to go on the adventure. After 5 games of character development, Brothership has definitely upped the bravery switch on old Green Mario here, and as such they have given him a new defining trait, being the smart one. Throughout the game, Luigi will have these little brain blast moments where he'll pop up a little Luigi exclamation point and be like, I know what to do. They're great moments character-wise, but gameplay-wise they offer quite little. It's always immediately clear to the player when Luigi can use his smarty pants ability because he glows. It feels like it's all Luigi figuring it out. He's doing all the work and I, as the player, didn't really earn it. This feeling is made even worse that when you trigger Luigi's smarts with the L button, most of the time he will walk away from you and perform actions all on his own. When I saw in the trailer that Mario and Luigi would sometimes walk off on their own paths, my assumption was that we would be controlling Mario and Luigi with the 2 sticks on the controller. Now, I'm sure that would have been clunky, but they just have him move on his own? Seriously? Why have them separate at all at that point? I get that having both brothers move at the same time looks cool, but if you can't make it work gameplay-wise to the point where the other brother just moves on their own, you probably shouldn't have implemented it into the game in the first place. There are even some puzzles, and I say that generously, where Mario has to jump on these M platforms and Luigi has to jump on these L platforms. But since Luigi moves on his own, he just walks over to his platforms and you have to go to the Mario ones. Worst case scenario, you get tripped up and jump too quickly on an L one, but like, that's not fun. These don't challenge my brain. There's even this one part of the game where you hit a block and a bunch of coins pop out. Snatlet comes out of Luigi's hat and is like, you guys should compete to see who can get more coins. And you just straight up play as Mario against Luigi to see who can grab the most coins. I know it's a friendly competition and all, Luigi even applauds you when you win, but pitting the brothers against each other in any way I feel is a massive disservice to the series' central theme of teamwork. Luigi isn't just a regular NPC here, he's an adversary. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. I know brothers have friendly competitions all the time, and that's probably what they were going for. Nevertheless, it was in this moment that I realized that I'm not playing a Mario and Luigi game anymore. I'm playing a Mario game where Luigi is a party member. Now, that may sound dramatic, but I do feel that this distinction matters. There's one last thing I want to touch on, the auto jumping. It's a bigger deal than you think. Now, you can make Luigi jump and swing the hammer in the overworld. However, if you jump up on a ledge or across anywhere, you do not have to press B to make Luigi jump with you. He jumps all on his own. This is a massive change from previous Mario and Luigi games. Unlike the ridiculous setting with the A button change, I actually understand why the developers did this one. In previous games where you always needed to make Luigi jump, if you didn't have him jump in time, he would fall face over overalls into the dirt. And since Mario is a supportive brother, he'd fall too. By having Luigi jump automatically, it will save every player a decent amount of time retreading the same ground. However, I still don't think they should have made Luigi auto jump, because by having Luigi auto jump, he becomes more of an NPC party member than an additional playable character. Also, there were other solutions to the jump problem. You could program Luigi to just not fall down ledges if Mario jumped ahead. But why does actually pressing the button to make Luigi Luigi jump matter. The same can be said about Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Mario jumps and the partner just follows. But the partners in that game have smaller roles than Mario. They don't have as much screen time. They can be switched out in exchange for other partners. Luigi, by comparison, is usually the bigger character in the Mario and Luigi games. Look, Mario is great and all, but this guy's already the perfect hero. What character arc can he possibly go through? Who are we relating to more? The guy who is practically perfect, always beats up the bad guy and saves the princess, or the guy who gets roped in on a crazy adventure and totally wishes he were back home eating spaghetti? Luigi is the more relatable character, and in an RPG, we want to feel like we're playing as that relatable character. Gameplay-wise, Brothership is really solid. The very fact that this is my biggest criticism of the game should say that. I just think that the game lost a little bit of its identity and a little bit of what made it Mario and Luigi by making these choices. It's not game ruining, it's just game damaging. I think looking at this game is a great way to see how little choices can really make a difference in how a game is presented. And if it really does take multiple board meanings to make those little choices, maybe you should take a page out of Luigi's book and instead put some bold ideas to use right there in the moment. Hey, if you like this video on Mario and Luigi Brothership, maybe you'd like to see this other video right here. If you like what I do and want to see me do more of it, consider becoming a channel member or supporting my Patreon, link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.